To Politics on the Rocks, episode 25. That was Cameron. Who was that?
I don't know.
You gave me the song.
I know it's the song title.
Rita is gone. Rita is gone. Bye.
I'm going to tell you right now. Just give me 1 second. I'll tell you right now.
Welcome to Politics on the Rocks, episode 25. That was Rita
is Gone by the Marcus King Band. That's what that was.
We'll cut that first part out.
No. We leave it.
Hey, Chris, let's roll with it.
In uncut.
If you can't tell, this is actually the end of the episode at the beginning of this episode.
10 inches uncut.
Hey, so, sounds like,
yeah, so I'm your host, Nick. I have my 3 co-hosts with me. To my right, Chris.
Hey there.
Across to my right, Boogie. Shut the fuck up. Across the table from me, Cameron.
Good day,
and he has our hostess with him, our special guest host.
Yeah, special guest of this evening is Chattanooga Whiskey. We got the Vibe bottle this afternoon. It's very good.
Very tasty.
It's gone, and it has been for a long time.
Yeah, we did a super fun episode. So there's 4 of us on the podcast, and there's 2 of our very good friends on Foreign and Domestic Unfiltered podcast, and we all watched the documentary, or the January 6th documentary, that Tucker Carlson with Fox Nation produced, and we had a super fun right? That was a good that was a fun conversation, right?
Those guys are awesome.
Yeah, we love those guys, man. We had a lot of very similar views and a lot of very, nuanced views on it, and it promoted a super fun conversation. I mean, you guys want to talk about it at all before? Chris?
Yeah, I mean,
Cookie,
I think,
Cam?
I guess, you guys are going to get into it, and you'll see, but that's the fun thing about, doing this type of podcast where, you have the 4 of us who are kind of like free market libertarians, and Ramon and Paeder from the Foreign and Domestic Unfiltered podcast, who are more of, I know Ramon describes himself as a social democrat. Paeder, I'm not really sure where he lies. He didn't really elaborate what exactly. Maybe he agrees with that. But yeah, they definitely have different views from what the way we see things. Yeah. So it promoted a good conversation.
It was a lot of fun, man. We had I think overwhelmingly all 6 of us, and I know I'm speaking for Ramon and Paeder on Foreign and Domestic Unfiltered, but we had a lot of fun, man, on Politics on the Rock. So I hope they had just as much fun as we did. But yeah, that was the conversation for tonight. Anybody else want to say anything before we jump in?
I would just say that it's going to be really helpful for you to watch that documentary.
Yeah.
Otherwise you're not going to know exactly what we're talking about.
Yeah.
I mean, you get the idea. We're talking about January 6th.
Yep.
The insurrection at the Capitol. But I think it's helpful if you watch that document. If you don't, I mean, you'll still get, I think, maybe the gist of it.
Yeah.
But yeah, it was a good conversation. I like those guys. They're real cool. So yeah.
Yeah, we're gonna after this episode, I think all of us agreed that we're gonna try and do something more often. I think with them, because they have a lot of very similar views, but just nuanced enough that it promotes a really fun conversation, a lot of differences, and yeah, I don't know, I think you guys will enjoy it. So grab a stick, grab a glass, kick back, and relax.
Hey, what is Politics on the Rocks here for this week? Inspiration.
You say it, Chris.
Joy. Yeah. We'll cut that first part out. Politics on the Rocks, your source for inspiration and joy. Enjoy.
Yeah. So everybody knows the name of our show is Foreign and Domestic Unfiltered, and your guys' show is
Politics on the Rocks. Fitting for how we normally get hammered doing this.
So I was trying to explain it to Patter, like, what in your own words, what is the shtick of how you guys do this? Because I think, like, I've listened to enough episodes, but I just want to hear, like, how do you choose? What's your process for what drinks you choose and stuff like that?
I think how we choose them is basically whatever looks good in the liquor store. We have this dude Brandon, right? Brandon?
Yeah.
Brandon Mock, he owns a pretty sweet little liquor shop in town, and super knowledgeable guy. He knows all about bourbons, whiskeys, scotches, pretty much anything aged. So we get a lot of help from him in regards to what to pick.
Nice.
Yeah.
Which liquor store is this?
It's called Mock, right?
Yeah.
MAWK, and it's in Vero Beach, Florida.
Cool.
Nice.
Yeah, it's a little.
Those are Florida boys, Pat. I mentioned that, right?
Yeah.
No, you didn't. I thought they were fucking from around the way. No wonder they're sitting on their porch.
Yeah, exactly. Oh yeah, it's beautiful out here. It's like 61 degrees, and we're like wearing jackets and shit.
Yeah, no. This is Chris. He was one of Peter's best men at the wedding that I officiated.
Okay.
That's how we met.
Yeah, so we met there, and then yeah, we both just kind of found out we had podcasts and started talking about that. I remember we were like an hour and a half into like a heated debate on economics, and I was like, all right, we gotta go play some beer pong or something.
Yeah.
Oh, so wait,
Ramon, this is a wedding.
This was the wedding you just got back from, right, Chris?
Yeah.
Oh, nice,
in September.
man. Well, hey, man, congratulations on tying the knot. That's exciting.
No, I don't think he got married.
Well, no. I didn't get married. I married my sister-in-law.
Oh. Well, congratulations to her.
Sister-in-law, it's all sorts of fucked up here.
Oh, man, that's funny. Well, yeah, for our listeners, give them kind of insight to what you guys do.
Patrick, you want to take it?
Yeah, so this is Foreign and Domestic Unfiltered. I guess the name would suggest that we're drinking foreign and domestic beers, which, we kind of thought about having that. But we do drink beer plenty on the podcast. But we really we tackle and kind of dissect current affairs issues, both obviously domestically, US centered, as well as foreign issues as well, and just kind of poke holes, poke fun. Chop it up a policy, interview local candidates, and just generally kind of get through all the shite that you normally see in just plain politics, and kind of have a pragmatic approach to foreign and domestic affairs.
Solid. Yeah, you guys sound like you do a little bit more professional version of what we do. Like more organized.
Sounds that way.
Yeah.
I know they ask us what we do.
It seems like it on the surface, but it's not. It's really not.
Yeah, they're like, what do you guys do? And we were just like, drink.
Yeah. That's awesome, man. That's awesome. Well, shit. So
also important perspective, an important context is the reason why I thought this would be such a great episode was because obviously, like, Chris is, he's libertarian, and we're on the left. We're to the left of the Democratic Party, I'd say, right, Patrick?
Yep.
I consider myself a democratic socialist. Chris is aware. I always love. It's always fun. Every libertarian buddy I've had, I always have the best conversations with. So. Because it's like this interesting point where it's like, we can all agree, like, fuck the establishment. But,
right.
Where does the... I feel like I have better policy discussions. Because a lot of the libertarians I talk to are sort of removed enough from the status quo of what things are, where they don't feel the, knee-jerk need to defend what's happening in either party.
Right, that tribalism.
And then you can sort of have, right, you can have more of an honest, what is your, how do you actually feel about this thing? And even if you don't agree with it, you can still, this isn't just some guy who's, spitting out a Tucker Carlson talking point, or, whatever.
Yeah. Yeah, well, I couldn't agree more. I mean, people who don't identify with this duopoly kind of system we have naturally produces a better conversation, because you lose that tribalism, you lose all that ego with being affiliated with one party versus the other, and you can genuinely bounce good ideas that you hold to your values off of each other, and it's just a way more fun conversation.
Yeah, and in an ideal society, that's how government would be run, but we know that such is the stranglehold of the two parties here that it's hard to get anything done, as you're seeing.
Right, right. So so today we all throughout the week, or I don't even know when the documentary came out, but we all for 6 of us watched the Patriot Purge of the Patriots.
Yeah, Patriot Purge.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, we've already had a couple glasses, so we all watched that, and that's what we're here to ultimately talk about, right? Our kind of take on just the whole idea of it and how it was portrayed and all that fun stuff.
Mm-hmm. Yep, and for reference, for context, folks, it's the Tucker Carlson's new documentary, mini docu-series. There's 3 parts, I believe, right, guys?
It's like 3 25-minute parts or so.
Yeah. It's only available on Fox Nation. Never thought I'd put a Fox Nation plug on my podcast.
Really upside down.
Come to the dark side.
Yeah.
Oh, man. But yeah, hey, any of our fans that are going to end up listening to this, you know my credo. You got to do your Oppo research, even if you don't agree with it. The right wing's got propaganda on Lock Smash, and that's what this thing was, man.
Yeah,
that's what it was. And it's the most effective propaganda I've seen in my political lifetime. So we can get into it.
Yeah, there's a lot of propaganda out there nowadays.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. So me and oh no, go ahead.
No, I was just gonna say, Ramon really hooked me. Was it I who sent you you sent me the promo clip for it?
Oh,
or did I send it to you?
I don't know, but just watching it, I was like, I have to watch this.
I was like, this is disgustingly propagandish. Just the music and everything was like, January 6th. They'd want to think. I was like, oh my god, I have to watch this. What I thought was interesting is it started off, the first 10 seconds, they're calling stuff the Gulag and, the War on Terror 2.0. I was like, okay, so they're setting the scene right away. And it was just from there, it was everything I expected it to be. Very stern, I smell shit, Tucker Carlson looking face talking into the camera. Yeah.
There wasn't as much of that as I expected, honestly.
What?
Is it me or does Tucker Carlson always look surprised?
At nighttime he gets more smell of his shit, but
yeah, I would have to agree that that's what hit me first too, is the opening, and throughout the whole documentary series was they definitely try to set that tone with the music and the imagery that they would kind of show and blink through, and that's the stuff I typically dislike in any documentaries. Once they try to play with your feelings, play with your emotions.
Yeah, they try to invoke emotion into it.
I was gonna say one thing I did like though about that, how they were they brought up the War on Terror a lot, and Tucker's, he's maybe one of the only people on mainstream news that actually gets into that stuff and kind of calls out the U.S. government for a lot of the shit they've done over there. So I thought that was good,
and that's actually
go ahead.
Yeah, and I was going to agree with you on that. I was like, as I was watching it, they did numerous times hark back to the original War on Terror and how I had to laugh, and they were kind of showing, and Tucker was saying numerous times the U.S. government has worked with ISIS to defeat fucking Syrian forces and stuff like that. And I was like, I actually agree with him on that.
Mm-hmm.
That was the only thing in the whole documentary, though.
The best part of it for me, and we can get into more specific instances of stuff, but just I agree with everything you guys are saying. This is why though, this is a big no on the left. I stick it in and say it often though, because I'm honest and I say it to people I know in real life. Tucker is the one guy I call him the most dangerous man on the right. Right, and the reason I say that is because, if we did an episode on Rush Limbaugh, I have respect for propagandists on any side because it is an art and it is a craft. Tucker Carlson is so effective in his delivery and a lot of other things, but like you said, I think it was what you mentioned, Chris, was he has always positioned himself against all of these, like, most of these Middle Eastern wars, for the most part. He's always been in that position, and he literally, like, I think he ended Bush in this documentary. Like, if this actually gets popular, and this has, like, play on the right, this is, like, the nail in the coffin for that guy. Like, it's already bad enough that, like, Bush is, like, seen in opposition to Trump, and Trump's taking over the party, but, like, this documentary just shits on George. Like, literally just showing his face, like, he's the bad guy.
One of the first...
you thought Osama was bad?
One of the first scenes was that, like, mission accomplished banner on the, like, aircraft carrier or whatever.
Yeah.
It's, like, right in the intro.
Yeah.
Tucker's trying to end the Bush dynasty, bro. Like, he literally, like,
the Cheney
aside
dynasty?
from whatever his reasons... What's that?
I said, what, you mean the Cheney dynasty?
Well,
Same thing.
Well, I mean, Bush's daddy, you know, that family's got clout still, man. Oh, boy. But, all right, does anybody... So, who wants to... Here, well, we didn't really even discuss this. Who wants to... Chris, do you want to... Or one of you guys, do you guys want to be, like, the main host here and guide us through instances, so it's not just, like, all six of us crawling all over each other?
Right. Yeah, I don't know. Do you got some notes that you took over there, Nick?
Yeah, they were just kind of like, I don't know, not really anything to guide a conversation, which maybe that's how I should have aimed the notes. But
I kind of just have mine structured, like, episode by episode, kind of in order what they talked about, I guess.
Yeah, maybe you be the moderator.
Yeah, it seems
then.
like you'd be better.
Yeah.
Okay. So,
You're the guy, you win.
I forgot to look this up, but I guess one of the main themes was just how the media kind of, like, they do manipulate things to kind of fit what they're trying to get across. And the one of the first things they mentioned was how, you know, you repeat things and you repeat something enough times until it becomes true. And we're seeing that a lot with a whole bunch of different topics nowadays.
Yeah, and one thing, not to cut you off, but I feel like this is a good point to bring this up. But they talked about that guy's, the officer Sicknick, how they reported that he was killed, and then it turned out that he wasn't killed, and that he wasn't even attacked. And then they said, he was attacked with pepper spray, and then, you know, they debunked that. And now, you know, that message has been repeated so many times that even though it did come out later on that this guy, nothing really ever happened to him, it's still believed that this guy was murdered at the Capitol. You know what I mean?
Kind of has, like, a Russian collusion vibes.
Yeah, he definitely died at the Capitol. And I would actually stretch to say, like, he mightn't have died the ways that it was reported, but I would say that if January 6th it didn't happen, he probably would be still alive. You know what I'm saying?
That's definitely possible. Yeah,
right.
It is. You're 100% right. The way that these sound bites are just put out by media all the time to kind of, you know, drill it into people's heads, the message that they want you to hear. That was another instance where, you know, Tucker, you do it as well, but you're definitely right in what you're saying.
Sure.
Yeah, it's like what you said, it's possible that, you know, just because of the stress and whatever, you know, happened, he might have died by, you know, because of what was happening around him. But they can't just leave it at that, you know? They can't just, like, report on that and be like, this guy died. They have to, like, make some shit up to make it sound worse than what it was.
Yeah.
Right, and the thing is too, like, if you really looked into that, because I followed it while it was happening, like, through the media cycle the whole time. The biggest reason that stuff like that happens isn't even, and in this case, I'm not, you know, obviously Tucker's building the case for this was all grand conspiracy to ostracize a group of to create political dissidents, right? Basically, but if you watched it happen in real time, it's super simple. For me, it's Occam's razor that all of these news organizations don't fund investigative journalism anymore, and they literally just, like, have one guy report something and everyone runs with that. They're more
of, like, activists than journalists.
And then the problem is, a lot of the people doing the actual on the ground shit, and they even show it in this documentary. There were a bunch of left journalists there, and there were a bunch of right wing journalists there that were independent journalists. Mm-hmm. And then what happens is the mainstream media will caricature and pick through whatever information they find from these people on the ground that are just like me or you with a fucking phone and a YouTube channel, and then they'll stamp it. And they'll be like, "Oh, well, that's what really happened, and we're gonna run with that." And that's part of the issue, right? Is like, our fucking news, like, they have so much clout now and have so much, like, Chum Bucket, SpongeBob, like, brain mind control over so many people, but actually do do no journalism now. Like, very little. Especially TV journalism. Print, some people still do a decent job, but for the most part, like, no, they don't even spend money. How the fuck was there not anyone from any of these main organizations there?
Oh, they didn't need to be there. Like, you see what you're saying.
Isn't that weird? You know what
big time.
Yeah.
I don't know.
You sound like a conspiracy theorist there, Ramon.
No, I just think that these people... No, I think they just have disdain for, like, doing what their actual fucking job is supposed to be. You know?
Have you been watching Fox Nation on your downtime?
This isn't a right-wing take. This is just the facts. Like,
Hey, with you.
Peter,
it's the reason it costs $20 a month to read the New York Times now. Because they're all monetized. It's just a fucking enterprise now. It's not about doing journalism. It's about making money.
It's about speed to the take. Everyone wants to be first and feel like they're breaking some sort of news. And they want to be profound. And it has to be something that's entertaining. Which is why you get headlines like, savagely beaten. Bludgeoned with a fire extinguisher.
Yeah.
That's exactly why.
Yeah. So they've almost like prioritized being first and fast and being quick rather than
right. They don't
accurate.
even need to be right.
Being accurate.
They just want to be the first ones there.
Yeah.
Yeah. And we've talked about that before, Ramon, how, like, I remember when I was growing up watching news back home, we used to watch Sky News and local Irish news. And it would only be for, proper breaking news that you would get the crier on at the end, breaking news, fucking whatever, something would happen. Now, if you flip onto any mainstream channel, there's breaking news constantly on the bottom. There's like so many like buzzy, sensory overload things that are supposed to be like, going through your mind about what's happening right now. And they really set the tone with that in the mainstream. And that's kind of speaks to a lot of the issues that a lot of people have with mainstream, is that they feel like they overdo it way too much. And you're right, it's easier with print because you properly have to digest what is there. It's not just a chyron, and then you kind of have to siphon through the context of it.
100%. Chris, you got to keep us on track here. We're on a wild tangent.
Yeah. So I mean, I guess a lot of this was kind of just all centered around the media and how they're reporting things, right? So like the other thing was how they kind of characterized it as a white supremacist rally or something, and I mean, I don't really see where they're. I think this is just one of those things that the media kind of latch on to, like the buzzword or a term or something that they think is gonna injure the opposition somehow, and then they just kind of run with it. They showed the one example with the organizer who was Muslim and was very, very clearly not a white supremacist.
Ali Alexander.
Yes. Yeah. Yep. And yep.
Yeah, I was going to say that it's funny because I've seen this guy before the Stop the Steal. He came up on a couple of things I was reading, a couple of things I was watching. And it's, in the history of time, it's not uncommon for, a person of color to be used as, a weapon within white supremacist groups. So, that's something I kind of take out of the kind of mix. Even, he's black, he can't be a weapon for white supremacy. He organized the Stop the Steal with, Biggs, Brooks, and Gozar, which we know are pretty intense far-right white supremacists, I would say. Certain people would disagree, but if someone like Paul Gosar, you definitely couldn't. Ali Alexander is actually one of the original birthers for President Obama, which I thought was very interesting.
That is.
And Ramon, you'll like this. You'll like this, Ramon. He actually worked on Jim Tedesco's, local politician Jim Tedesco.
Oh my God, are you fucking kidding?
Yeah, he worked because he's handy with like graphic design and.
Bro, Tedesco's a fucking G. He's a fucking.
He worked with Jim Tedesco in setting up websites and stuff and running his social.
That's a Republican in upstate New York that just
he actually
spanks Democrats up here. Like he just whips
my
ass
wife's
every
salon.
cycle.
He cut the ribbon on my wife's salon, which I thought was hilarious.
Yeah. Yo, he'll be in the worst, poorest neighborhoods, like balling with black kids and shit. Like he's like the highest level Republican I've ever seen.
Yeah.
He's just boots on the ground kind of guy.
And just to wrap that up with Ali Alexander, I think, he was working hand in hand with the Congress members I'd mentioned there. And he was obviously working closely with Alex Jones. At the same time, during the episode, they were talking about agent provocateurs and people who are agitators. Mm-hmm. I've never come across a bigger agitator in all my life than Alex Jones and conspiracy theorists. So the documentary itself was talking out of both sides of its mouth at that point.
Yeah, but Alex Jones isn't at rallies telling people to do, telling people to do things that they shouldn't be doing.
He was actually doing the opposite from what I've seen.
Right. Well, I mean, yeah, from the clips and the
I
think one of my favorite parts was where they showed him very briefly just marching down the road and just yelling, "We're coming, swamp creatures!"
with his limb.
That was unreal.
And I think this is an interesting point I wanted to hit on too, like to sort of lay my groundwork of how my mind perceives this documentary is. There's a lot of common themes here for people, how I think people on the right will perceive this documentary, and how people that are on the left who've sort of, like, all this shit that Tucker's talking about, like, the government's targeting these Americans who are just trying to protest, blah, blah, blah. Like, this is, like, old news to people on the left. That's what I think is the most effective piece of propaganda in all of this. And when I say that, like, if you guys ever heard me talk about it before, and folks that listen to the show know, like, I use propaganda as just like a overarching term because people put like a negative spin on it all the time. Like, in my opinion, like, politics is, the whole point is you're trying to gain power to enact your policies that you want. And how do you gain support? Well, you have to propagandize that to people, right? So, but the interesting thing that I wanted to bring up was that I feel like people will see these events, just like, put this in parallel with like George Floyd protests and rioting and stuff. You're always going to feel a little more sympathy for the people that you perceive to be closer to you on the political spectrum, right? But when I saw this, I think that there's, if you try to be objective at it and look at it, like, okay, there were clearly people there who went there to agitate, right? They can't all be provocateurs the way that this documentary tried to make it play it like out to be. There were definitely people there that wanted to go there and fuck shit up. There are always going to be those people there. I didn't agree with the folks on the left during the George Floyd stuff who were like, this one guy was able to set off a whole crowd. Like, no, there's people who went there to go do that shit. You can't tell me that that's not the case, because if you're going to sit there and presuppose that no one is like in a state of, if this country's not in enough of a state of political instability that people aren't able to just go do that shit themselves.
Yeah, I mean, we've all personally known people who we know for a fact would take advantage of a situation like that just to go like rob something from a store or whatever. like I've definitely known people like that. Like it's definite. That there were
for instance,
there.
Me.
Yeah. I wasn't going to name you, but
it's obviously I was at a bunch of we did a bunch of George Floyd protests up here in upstate New York, and obviously, like, the people, the core group of people you organize with or whatever, like, yeah, we're out there peacefully, whether you need to get a permit or not, depending on whatever you did. But there were always things that happened in other places where, like, illegal shit happened. And, you know, it's part of it. You know what I mean? And that's what blows my mind is when people view this from the opposite. It's happening on the other side of the aisle, and people are like, oh, look at this. And it's like, yeah, people lose control. That's what happens. That's what happens when huge groups of people that all kind of agree on something start amassing. Like, that's what happens.
Right.
And that's actually... that triggered me to a point in the documentary where they were trying to, you know, frame it as, you know, we've got all these people here with the intention of just protesting. You know what I mean? I'm talking about, you know, Ali Alexander, what he was talking about. He was like, we have a permit for right here. And then they were saying, once some other people who were interviewed were talking about, once they were in, it was quite peaceful. Everybody was calmed down.
And then they show people like beating the shit out.
Yeah, and then and all of a sudden someone got shoved, and then everyone got angry again. You know what I mean? You know, me and Ramon have done podcasts before, and we talked about how, you know, by and large, considering how many people protested during the George Floyd stuff and the BLM stuff, and I've, you know, done research on it and checked the numbers on it. In and around 93% of all the protests during that period of, you know, millions and millions of people protesting, 93% of them were peaceful, right? So then for a documentary like this, where they're trying to kind of paint that side as, you know, agitated and angry and doing all these stuff at every single protest, you know, if we look at the two protests that the far right have had, and people who are angry over alleged stolen election, you have Charlottesville where two people died, one person died. Mm-hmm. Then you have this January 6th, where what's the total number of dead after this? Was it 3 or 4 at the end?
I think it was. I want to say
I thought
3,
that was interesting in the documentary that they couldn't see that they're actually, you know, kind of making a point for the other side too, and how they were framing everything.
Anybody got anything?
What's your guys' take?
Well,
you guys got hot takes? I know you guys got.
Yeah. So, just one of the little things that I jotted down, and this is a point that you were making, Ramon, with how, you know, how it was perceived. I think it's worth. Actually, I guess I kind of want to get your guys' point on this, and I think you probably agree with. You probably our opinions on it, but it's hard to ignore the fact that you had the corporate press, you know, promoting all of these congressmen and congresswomen that were basically calling you know, a lot of the George Floyd protesters, basically calling them to violence, saying, you know, if you see these Republican congressmen at dinner, you know, whatever, get in their face, like, basically, you know, asking
Maxine
them to...
Waters.
Yeah, Maxine Waters, specifically. But, you know, to see the corporate press on one side when it came to that, and then on this side, they were calling, you know, all these congressmen that were openly saying, like, you know, we do not need to be doing this, and to completely ignore that, like, I think it's hard to ignore the, what's the antonym to parallel? Yeah, exactly. I mean...
Yeah.
I mean, I definitely, I understand. I hear what you're saying. I think that something that we should probably bring up, or at least I will build into my take here on, you know, whether I agree with you or not on that, is I think that what was lost in the documentary and what gets lost in a lot of when people talk about what happened on January 6th and the George Floyd protests, is what were the suppositions that brought people out into the street for those two things, right? And this is where I don't have that type of, you know, it's just one other side of the coin take on it, because those people who were there for January 6th were there based off of an unprovable thing they thought was true. That's my point. You know what I mean? Like, the Maxine Waters gets away with saying, and mind you, I don't agree with that. I don't agree with all the people who, like, been riling up folks on the left to, like, oh, go fucking, like, hide in the cargo of like the plane Kirsten Sinema's getting on and like climb out of it and like harass. You know, like I don't agree with that. I think that's weird. You know what I mean? Like,
is that a real thing?
Stalkerish.
No, I just made that up. But no, but like, you know, like people like harassing politicians. You know, I'm not in that camp, because here's my thing. Like, no, we're way past the point where like these people are stone cold just going to do whatever their bosses are telling them to do. It doesn't matter what you do anymore. But my point is, like, the Maxine Waters take, I get why people were frustrated by that, but, and again, this isn't me excusing it, but the reason that a lot of the political ecosystem and the political media excuses those things is because they're all attached to civil rights and decades of pain and issues and stuff that, you know, she's mad old. Like, you know, she literally went to a segregated school probably at one point. You know what I mean? Like, that's why they excuse it. When you saw the shit that happened on the 6th, basically, I mean, everyone who wasn't a complete Trumpster was like, what are these people even freaking out about? Like, he lost. Yeah. So that's the difference. There's no, you can't build a sympathetic story outside of that political ecosystem of the Trump people. It's only for them. Like, that, you get what I mean? Like,
yeah, absolutely.
A person who's not black can look at and understand what Maxine Waters is upset by and other people and be like, nah, yeah, and give them the pass. You know what I mean? That's why those two things get viewed so differently.
Right. I think my only rebuttal to that would be that, you know, she perpetrated this message after months of violence already. So for her to be kind of, you know, pushing for, you know, more provocation or provocateur or whatever, you know the word I'm trying to say. But for her to be pushing for more of that after months of violence, I think, you know, I would like to think that most objective people were kind of like, I don't know if that's, you know, really what we should be doing.
They went after your boy Rand Paul, Ramon. Come on.
Right, but guys, but the difference is, look, you have, but there's no connecting event of violence from what Maxine Waters said. That's the difference, though, right? I mean, we can all agree on that. That, like, when Trump whipped people up at his rallies before he was even president, like, people got beat up right there. Like, that was immediate. You know what I mean? So you can make that link. Like, oh, he's fucking getting riling up these hogs to beat people up right in front of your face on live television. That's the difference, right? I mean, surely we can see that gap there. You know, like, so if someone like went up and like punched fucking Rand Paul in the face after that, then yeah, I'd be like, oh, did Maxine Waters? I would agree with you. But it's just like, it didn't happen, man. Yeah. But okay, part of that is it lies in. No, go ahead.
Well, but with that being said, I mean, it's not like the violence stopped. So, I mean, can we really say that what she said didn't, you know, at least help it keep going?
Yeah, I mean, we can't minimize what the Black Lives Matter protests actually happened. Like, they did, like, burn down buildings and loot, and there was, I mean, that did happen.
And maybe we should detach Black Lives Matter from that, because I think, you know, they're like, you know, like Peter was saying, 93% of them were, you know, peaceful based on the numbers that he was looking at. But the point that Cameron's trying to make is, you know, violence continued after Maxine Waters was saying that. So I don't think we can fairly say that her words didn't have any,
like, there was no connection at all, no link,
and maybe there wasn't. We don't know, but.
Yeah, this should take by her, and it's I think it's dangerous for someone in power to have a take like that.
Yeah,
it was a flippant comment. It wasn't a rally based around her riling people up. From what I remember, and just to bring it back to the January 6th documentary, I'm sure we can all be in agreement that if it was a Black Lives Matter protest that burst through the fucking Capitol grounds, they definitely wouldn't have got to the front door of the Capitol building. They couldn't even get past the park in fucking downtown DC before they got tear gas so Trump could hold a Bible in front of a church. So I think we can separate those two things right there. And that was one of the most shocking things to me about January 6th, and what I kept on saying to myself is, if this was any other movement, not any other movement, but a movement around social justice, and not something that was linked to an election that had just ended with nearly 50% of the people voting for the other guy, then it would have been nipped in the bud when they were marching down the prom. You know what I mean? Well, that's my
take
on that.
when I think about that, I just immediately kind of go to just the fact that we know that and this is, probably the next part of this episode, how they were talking about all of the, things that we know that the federal government's organized in other countries.
Right.
It's all eerily similar.
Yeah, and I definitely don't think they don't have the capacity to organize something in this country to that magnitude. And it is really odd that we saw a lot of videos of cops that looked like they were just kind of
letting people
stepping out of the way, just waving people on. It was a really odd scene. And
I remember while it was happening, just watching the videos coming through Instagram and some of the news outlets that I follow on there, some of the more objective. But to see what the hell was that guy with the bull horns on his head? What was his name?
I don't remember his name, but yeah.
But to see him being like
shaman.
the QAnon shaman.
The shaman, the Q shaman.
Yeah, but to see him basically being escorted into the
Senate hall.
Yeah, the Senate hall, and then I don't know.
Polite Peter Griffin.
Yeah, it was
any
strange.
Chance you cannot sit there.
Man, something really triggered me in that scene, and that was when the Capitol officer said that, he was like, this is, the most sacred place.
Yeah,
and I was like, oh my god, you guys literally view this like a fucking church. It is so sick.
Tell me you're in a cult without being in a cult.
But real fast before we
so guys, I have what I think is a solid take, right? Rolling back what Paeder said and connecting to what you guys are saying, right? So him saying black folks would have never even got up the steps, I think that this is why this documentary is so effective, and I think that this is part of what explains this interesting moment we're in American history, is because not because of just the comparison of black folks wouldn't have been able to do that. I think that this is legitimately the first time we're seeing almost 99% white group. I mean, you could look at those folks in the crowd there from all the footage. I think that a lot of those people there were shocked that happened to them. First of all,
agreed.
Black protesters would never try to go inside Congress. Keep it super real, bro. They would have never even tried because they would have been actually scared. And that sort of, in my mind, explains why a lot of the police were like, hey, whatever, because if you remember a lot of the footage in the beginning, cops were kind of talking to some of them. And, you could hear people in the crowd. And this is my point, where it's there's mixtures of people. There's people who just think hey, I'm a patriot. I think Biden fucking lost. But I support the police. And those were the guys yelling at everyone, pulling people off, cops, doing that type of shit, right? So I think the police there were a little disarmed because they didn't think that shit was going to happen either. I think that everyone kind of got swept up in the moment, but the ultimate, that interesting dynamic of a lot of, right-wing white folks in this country seeing that, or who were there in that crowd, probably didn't expect that to turn out that way. Because I know that a lot of people who went there were saying, this isn't what I came here for. Never in their mind did they think left-wingers do shit like that. Yeah. We wouldn't beat the police and go do, whatever. We didn't burn police stations all last summer. So I think that in their head, there was that interesting break. But that's what makes this documentary possible, is because this is the first real opportunity, aside from when some not 1%ers, sovereign citizens do weird shit in groups, take a post office over or something like that. Yeah. For the most part, you really don't see large groups of white people do political violence in this country to the government. Mm-hmm. You know what I mean? That's the difference.
Unfortunately,
you get what I'm saying, right? Because typically those folks have recourse within the government to get what they want. We're watching a break of a lot of middle and lower white class white working people feeling the break that a lot of other groups, other cultures in this and races in this country have felt the need to go to the extremes for. They feel like they're disconnected from a government that they felt used to represent them. I think that's the interesting thing to take away from this documentary and what's happened in the last year and a half.
I'll give you one better.
I think it's fascinating.
And just say that I think Republicans are just lazy as fuck up until now.
No, I still think they're pretty lazy. But I would have to agree with a little bit with Ramon there.
Yeah, I agree.
Something that came to me from this first episode in the documentary, and I just want to throw this out there, not to throw us off too much, but the big thing I took away from this, and this isn't anything new. I mean, it's been kind of put out there for a while now, especially when Bush was still president when he ran his second time, I think. But a lot more people are just not trusting the system, right? I mean, that's what that was. There was a large group of people not trusting that the person they wanted to win was cheated out, and this is what happened. And then we even saw it, with Virginia? Yeah. You know, it wasn't as big, obviously. It wasn't a storming or anything, but there's people saying, hey, this was stolen, or is this even correct? But I think it's interesting to see that now we see a lot more, just like Ramon was saying, a lot more people, if they're not feeling like they're being represented enough, you know, and they're saying, hey, are we being cheated, or what is even going on with the system that we have now?
Yeah, and I think this is a good kind of red-pilled moment for most of the country, no matter kind of where you lie on the spectrum. You know, for the Republicans, it was, Donald Trump having the election, air quotes, stolen from him. For the Black Lives Matters folks, it was, the George Floyd stuff. And, I'm not here to discuss if any of it's right or wrong. I'm just saying I think for a vast majority of the country...
Go for it.
Yeah, no, I'm just saying for the vast majority of the country, this is a huge red pill moment showing, like, hey, we the people really do have the power to make change. But in order to do that, you have to have courage and... Yeah, that's the point I was making.
Stand up for what you believe in.
Yeah, there's strength in numbers, you know what I mean?
They can't arrest us all.
Yeah, and I think, with everything that was said there, I think one of the things that I highlighted and asterisked, and it comes up a lot when you listen to Tucker Carlson speak on his show and, similar types of personalities as him speaking, is they talk about your core constitutional rights, right? At the same time, they didn't mention, all the constitutional rights that they were actually coming into contact with on January 6th. We talked about the sacred, chambers of the Senate and all that, where these guys are running in, breaking windows and all that. I don't think... when was the last time, you might know the date, the last time that something like that happened in the U.S. in the Capitol?
Was that when they got burned?
Close to the Civil War. Yeah, whenever it was.
Yeah.
It was obviously very far removed.
Didn't some vegans storm the Capitol?
January 6, 2021.
I think that was I think that was a state capitol.
Yeah, it was. You're right. In 2014 or something like that?
No, but I understand what he's saying.
Yeah, I get what he's saying.
A larger...
Yeah, but anyway, I thought they like to use this core constitutional rights, and they use it as a scare tactic. And I think, over everything that this documentary was trying to do, it was trying to evoke that feeling that your election was stolen. Next is going to be your rights to, the sacred constitution. And they kept on dropping that in throughout the documentary, and the ominous music and imagery and snipped up snippets of someone saying something outlandish on the left. It was very well done, but for someone like myself or Ramon or I'm sure you guys as well, you're able to see that is part of that type of documentary. It's the type of people. I won't say the type of people. I was the person who gets moved to get really G'd up from a documentary like this is easily led. Another thing I thought was interesting throughout the documentary, at least the first episode, was it didn't mention QAnon once, right? And they talk about
that's crazy.
Yeah, and we know that has a big play on why January 6th happened. We had at the Stop the Steal rally, you had General Mike Flynn up there. We go one, we go all, fella.
Yeah.
I thought that was very, very telling that they didn't even mention that once. And if you connect what had happened with the QAnon movement and draw a straight line to January 6th, I think anybody who's really dug deep can see the connection into why so many people were upset and why they thought it was an actual steal, because they were being led to believe that the reckoning was about to happen. And a lot of people
an entire year almost.
Yeah.
For a whole year almost.
Right. The dark winter.
And a fair election happened in terms of actual, constitutional fairness. They were certifying the election that day. You mean to tell me that having a fucking rally that day, the day of the certifying election, is not there to incite anything? I just don't believe that. And it was, I was going to say it's irresponsible of Tucker Carlson not to mention QAnon, but I mean, it's Tucker. So
yeah. So I don't know. I guess the one thing. Oh yeah, I wanted to mention that short period of time where all the right wingers were kind of like questioning the cops for once was pretty. For us, it was a little bit exciting. We were like, "Oh God, they're waking up
for sure."
And then the George Floyd rallies got even, more. Was it Minnesota or was it started spreading around the country a little more or something? I can't remember if it was after January 6th or what the exact timeline was. But I remember we were all saying, this January 6th thing just kind of like broke the ice on right wingers, just finally realizing that cops aren't. They're there to earn a paycheck. They're not there to fucking support one side or the other, and they're gonna do whatever.
Yeah, they're agents of the state. At the end of the day,
well, certainly not the DC cops.
Right.
And this was a point that a lot of people made that I loved, like around when it happened. Like, did you see what was it? I think it was an ex-NYPD chief who was like, "What the fuck are they doing?" Like, and then someone made the joke, like, "Bro, like the NYPD was." Literally like chomping at the bit, like, please let us go in there and bust some ass. Like they really those were some soft ass doughy cops there, bro. Like they were not ready for that.
What do they see on a daily basis,
Yeah, nothing.
Tourists.
Yeah, nothing.
But yeah, they just see like middle school like fucking
classes coming through,
laughing
at all the old pictures.
Yeah.
But you maybe could argue that most of them might be pedophiles, thinking about the fact that they get to pat down like middle school field trips.
That could be the next documentary.
The Capitol Police raise kids.
Yeah, it's a good demonstration of how your government will protect you, right?
Yeah.
But as long as we're on that topic of that is something I did want to touch on real quick. I know I'm talking way too much, but this break, like you're saying, like a lot of conservatives having this break, that's why, like, this is why I'm saying, like, this was such successful propaganda, because he took this moment and perfectly jujitsu'd it into like, here's the flashes of people getting black bagged in fucking Guantanamo. Well, that's gonna be you. That's gonna be you. The government's. We've been telling you George Bush was bad for mad long. All of us fucking paleo conservatives that have been shitting on him for mad long, and you wouldn't break away. Now I'm gonna show you his face. He's the bad guy. All this shit we did over there was horrible, and now they're gonna do it to you. And
yeah, they did do a lot of connecting.
Yeah, this is super important going forward. Like, if Trump runs again in 2024,
I hope he does.
It's gonna be shit like this that causes the actual downfall of establishment Republicans. Like, because this is the stuff. Like, these are the kinds of pieces of media that, if it's under a flag like Fox, there's gonna be a lot of people who will watch this and be like, "Wow, you know what? Johnny, my nephew, who was in Iraq and is all fucked up now, and now he hates all of this shit. He served, he was over there, and he's saying all this same stuff." I think that this is going to cause a lot of ideological breaking from the establishment Republican Party. Like, this is not. I don't want to say like, just one piece of media, but like, this ball that's slowly getting larger, like this snowball rolling downhill, this gave it a big ass push, I think.
I mean, he's the most watched person in cable. So, I mean, and we already know that, plenty of people will watch this, and, he is the voice. What is it? They like the silent majority. So I'd agree with you on that 100%.
And I think from a leftist perspective, I love it. I think it's great, because whatever it's going to take to break these fucking insane right-wingers away from, like, sucking off the state in the establishment of like, oh, our military and police are so grand. Like, whatever it takes, yes, please, I'll take that.
Yeah, I agree.
I'd rather have fucking 40% of these people go become 3%ers tomorrow. Than
well, the 3%ers are just feds at this point.
Well, yeah, that's a good point too.
So, Roma, I don't want to put any words in your mouth, but I think what you're saying is 3 more women should have died at the Capitol building to push the people over.
Oh no!
I'm just joking with you, man.
While we're on the topic, I did have that take. Like when I first, like literally when I saw that was happening, the protest and everything, like I went and grabbed popcorn. Or not the protest,
He's like, I went and grabbed the Vaseline when Ashley got throat checked.
That's all right. She's white. We have so many of them.
When she got domed, when she got shot in the throat, I remember sitting there being like, you know, I was definitely like more angry, like generally about politics at that time because I hadn't had the release valve of having a podcast. And I do remember, like, I'll be honest, I remember looking at that and being like, well, I mean, like, I'm no fucking like, oh, like statist, like, oh, they should have power to execute people or whatever. But I remember thinking at the time, like, well, stupid game, stupid prizes. Like, you tried to jump through a window, all those fucking politicians were back there, and there were guys with guns, and you went through.
Yeah. Well, correct me if I'm wrong, but they had cleared out
perspective, like removed away from the emotion of the moment. Like, no, I don't like that. I don't want cops to kill anyone.
Right.
You know, especially an unarmed person coming through a window. But the thing is, people do have to be realistic, and that documentary certainly wasn't, and a lot of people aren't when they talk about it, is the fact that there was already a ton of violence previous to that. And they were breaking through a barrier where they had nowhere left to go. Those people didn't know where anyone else was in the building. Honestly, like the fact that the January 6th Commission probably, like, they're trying to do it like for political reasons. I think that there's got to be a mastermind somewhere in the DC police or whoever was the head of all of those people stationed in the Capitol of those cops. Someone definitely like turned off the radio or something.
There's something had to.
Yeah, like there's no way
definitely
that
somebody working from the inside. I think.
I will 100% agree with that on this documentary. Like there was definitely something weird happening there.
Yeah,
I would agree.
Yeah, well, I was just gonna say, I think, you know, whenever she got shot, I was like, oh man, that's it. Like, you know, right wingers are done with cops now. But then it turned out it was a black guy, so we're right back to square one.
Yeah, well, this was Jesus. But no,
the chess pieces never work out perfectly enough.
Oh man! Oh, Ramon just did. He's like disappearing. He's like, I gotta get out of here. But no, that's a good point because when I think it was a point Ramon was making about how, you know, whatever it'll take to get these, you know, crazed right wings, authoritarian, you know, statists, you know, to stop sucking off the teat of, you know, the state. I think you're giving too much faith to them. I think they're quick to forget. I think all it takes is, you know, like Paeder was saying, just for Trump to get back up there and be like, no, the police are good. And then, January 6th, what happened then? What do you mean?
Well, all it took was the defund the police rallies, and then they were like,
oh, yeah, exactly.
Line, hard as my cock.
Yeah, and I thought the COVID, you know, the fact that a lot of cops were going through with some of the more ridiculous COVID restrictions, I thought that was gonna do it too, but apparently not.
Yeah.
Yeah, you guys are hard, like, no mandators, right? You guys don't like any of the COVID shit.
No.
Yeah.
No.
I mean, we're all for, you know, people doing what they think is best for them. Business owners, if you want to, like, you know, require people to wear masks in your store, we have no issue with that. You know, I'm not going to go shop there, but we have no issue with that.
But the state shouldn't be enforcing.
Yeah,
the state shouldn't be the one deciding if,
especially on a federal level. That's where I think it gets a little more insane because, you know, if we're talking about the Constitution and what that says, I don't think there's any justification for, you know, telling people either what medical treatment they need to get or just making people wear certain articles of clothing.
Yeah, and I think we could, not that I don't think any of us agree with it, but we would maybe even be more realistic if it was like a state level thing, you know, state by state, because obviously we know states operate very differently, but to see it at a federal level is just like,
Yeah, I mean, I think I'm speaking for everyone, but I think the way we see it is that the system was set up so that you have a place to go if your state does something that you don't think is justified. You have somewhere to go. You can go to a different state. But if we're doing all these things from a federal level, you have nowhere to go. You're stuck with whatever their decision is.
So here, let me ask you guys the question that I pose to a lot of folks who have the line of thinking you guys do. So if you knew, right, for a sure fact, if I give you a hypothetical, it's like a little thought experiment. If you knew for a fact that we never did any mask recommendations or any type of vaccine, positive propaganda, I'll call it that, that the government did to try to get people to get vaxxed. If you knew we never did any of that in your ideal world, but 1 million more Americans would have died, do you still think that your way is better?
I would say yes.
Yeah.
Just honest public health question. You think the live sacrifice is worth the freedom?
See, you say public health. I don't think, and maybe that's the disconnect. We don't see it that way. We see it as your personal health.
Well, no. I'm asking you from the state's perspective. If you are the person pulling the lever, if it's your choice and your president, do you make it? Because it is public health because you're choosing.
Right.
Yeah. Is that worth saving the lives to take some of the freedom? Because I see a lot of people sort of set up this question around, ultimate freedoms, ultimate safety, and then, either one of those can be tyranny depending on what side of the bleachers you're sitting on.
Mm-hmm.
But I think that there has to be some recognition that, like, public health is a thing. You know what I mean? And I don't mean public health as in you need to do things to keep other people safe. I'm saying, like, seatbelts. Like, you need to make people do shit so less people die in your country. You know what I mean?
I keep hearing seatbelts used as an example, and I'm just like, if I want to fly through my windshield at 100 miles an hour, that's my damn right. But not that I wouldn't, because I think it's...
On the U level, I'm saying from a public policy perspective, not for Chris.
I think so. I think my view of public health is that it should be geared towards giving people the info they need to make the decision. Because how many times do we see them actually referencing medical studies, like referencing actual, what are they called, double-blind studies or whatever they reference for. How many times do you see these public policy people actually referencing this stuff? They just demonize people and tell you, if you don't wear a mask, you're killing grandma. And that's it. There's no ifs, ands, or buts about it. There's no reference to any sort of study proving what they're saying is true. It's just propaganda.
Right, and this is kind of more or less what I was getting at when I kind of cut you off, Ramon, and said, personal health. I think we've become too reliant on the state, and I think... if the state has any job, it's to give legitimate information, not just this, as you referred to it as positive propaganda, and let the people make the decision on their own. I think ultimately that's, you could look at Florida, we just hit the lowest COVID rates.
Yeah, I haven't seen an article about Florida in the New York Times in like a month.
Yeah, and Desantis basically did exactly what we're kind of saying is putting the choice in the people's hands. He truly followed the science. He had a board of scientists come on his in his office or wherever they did it, and they deliberated for hours, and he followed the true science, not the media propaganda and the buzz catchphrases and all this other stuff. So I guess when I was saying public versus personal health, I think I wasn't necessarily saying that personal on a level of like myself. I mean you're giving the right to the individual to make the personal choices that they feel is best for them.
Right.
Yeah, and I mean,
didn't Florida? How many as states rank? Where did Florida end up being in deaths from COVID?
Hopefully number one. But
so I guess I think we're definitely in the top 10 for like per capita. When you adjust for age, though, it's like middle of the pack.
Yeah, because we have one of the oldest populations.
But
depending on
Heaven's
whether
waiting, or what is it? Heaven's
the-
waiting
we're
room?
ninth.
Isn't that what they call it?
yeah,
It's
we're the northeast waiting room.
Wow, per
Yeah.
capita, Mississippi was the highest.
well, there's a lot of fat people
boys,
in Mississippi.
That's a good point.
We're getting so off. We have to come back to the documentary because we didn't even bring up the fucking like the actual like the mini biopics that Tucker did inside of each episode. We have to talk about these individual cases of people.
Let's start with those people in Alaska.
Chris, you got notes, right?
Yeah, let's start with those people in Alaska. I think that one was a little bit. I mean, so they were rated by the FBI based on, I guess, probably location data or something. Maybe maybe pictures of them. So they claim they were never in the Capitol. I don't know whether that's true or not, but the FBI came in and handcuffed them according to their testimony, and sat them down, showed them pictures of people that were not them, and then So then and then the last part, which I think goes back to what you guys were saying, where they were talking a lot about your rights and things like that. They confiscated their Declaration of Independence and their Constitution as evidence. That was kind of interesting.
Somebody get Nicolas Cage on the case.
Yeah. So, I mean, I think a lot of those cases, I mean, there was a bunch of different ones I remember following along immediately after this happened. There was numerous people that got kind of rated in similar ways and arrested, and I don't think, to my knowledge, I don't think a lot of them have any charges except for, like, trespassing.
Right.
Yeah, why aren't any of them charged with insurrection?
And that's what I thought was weird, right? Because I was like, why did Tucker pick these people? But then, like, as the episode went on and on, I think this was episode 2, it went on and on. I think it was like, oh, he picked them because they're sort of, like, probably the most normal people he could find. I think that's why.
Good point.
Probably.
Definitely.
And also kind of the optics of the FBI just going all the way to Alaska, like, to, like, the end of the world just to, like, pick these people out, you know?
But here's my take on this, right? Like, so you have all these people who went there, right? And, like, the FBI, obviously, they probably picked the most charitable example of them, like, fucking with this couple who, by all accounts, it seems like they were just, like, the guy was just, like, a regular run-of-the-mill Trump guy. Like, he didn't really seem like he was too crazy. His wife just seemed like a normal person. But this was why, like what I was saying, like, such an effective piece of propaganda, because it's like he's giving you the out to be like, oh, I know people who were there, I was there, or even some of the wilder stuff I saw, like, oh, they're just like those nice folks in Anchorage or wherever they were. You know what I mean?
Somebody's mom and dad's, I heard they were called in one of the episodes.
And it's such a genius pivot from a documentary perspective, from a cinematography perspective, because the whole time that they're showing all of these jazzed up people in these crowds, the only reason that the documentary starts showing you more and more of the violence that happened on the 6th and just generally how, like, people were beefing with cops and being aggressive is because they already gave you the proposition in episode 1 that, oh, these people were all provocateurs. And it's like, well, no. Like, there was definitely like there's so many people. Like, for example, like you got Charlie Kirk. You listed off Alex Jones. There's a ton of actual political players in the media that were involved in this. There were a ton of people that were out in the front, on the front lines of this from an independent journalist perspective that never got any calls from the FBI. Not that we know of. That, like, they weren't arrested or anything. There were a ton of people. So I do slightly agree with Tucker's his angle that he takes on it, where it's like, oh, the Justice Department was definitely just being, like, super selective. Like, all these leftists who were on Twitter, not even just leftists, but, like, just Democrats, whatever, at large, people on the left, who were, like, literally, like, jerking themselves off and, like, hunting down pictures of people they could find that they saw in the Capitol. And it's like,
autistic.
You really think the FBI needs your help? Like, they don't need your fucking help.
Drones.
They're just not going after these people. And that's part of what, I can't remember who said it earlier, but it's like, you were saying, like, oh, Republicans are lazy. Like, well, this whole system's broken and lazy.
Do you remember when USA...
In any real country, they would have fucking, like, first off, this never would have happened. Like, I can't imagine this happening, like people just strolling through this and like memeing on Nancy Pelosi's desk. Like it would have never happened in any other country. Like the military would have immediately started shooting people. But it really just, to me, this is such a huge signifying event, and like this documentary captures it in this almost perfect way, where it's like, oh, this is just a failing empire. Like this is this whole. The craziest thing, that political event that's happened probably in my lifetime, is just a meme now. Like, it's not even...
Yeah, I mean, that guy said it himself, right? It's the most sacred place, and they couldn't even fucking, like, stop people from going into there.
So I have a question for you.
Try.
Yeah, right. So I have a question for you, Ramon, since you were saying how, any other country this would never happen. Being that the federal government is so proud of the strength and, the technology they have to find these people and do all these things, do you think that the fact that it did happen is maybe telling that it was allowed to happen rather than it was something that just kind of got out of, they kind of just lost control of?
I think it's a combination of both. Like I said, I think that I think it was a combination. A ton of the cops that were there were stunned by the fact that happened. I think that there's obviously someone who was in charge and able to call in. If you look at the documents from some of the early January 6th Commission investigations, there's still a ton of unanswered questions, like the duty chief, like. There's all these people who had the ability to call in extra help, and it came super late.
Right.
Like, there was a crowd that was already beyond the people on the ground. The police on the grounds were capable of handling hours before any fucking cavalry came.
Yeah, one of the things
I think it's a combination of both.
Yeah, the thing that really makes me kind of lean on the side of it was allowed to happen is just how, again, the media they just loved that this happened. They were like, they loved it. It was like the talking point. They were able to just kind of use it, just kind of how Tucker Carlson's using it in the opposite way. I mean, I was going to say, do you remember when the USA Today put out the narc tip line?
Yeah, I remember that.
Yeah. God, USA
Wait,
Today.
What? Say that again?
USA Today, they put out like a tip line. They were like, if you know of anybody who was at the Capitol riots, you can anonymously submit your tips to USA Today, which is basically the CIA, but that's another topic.
Right. Yeah. Well, and that's the other crazy part about this is so right-wing people are less likely to wear masks. That was part of what the trouble was with the George Floyd protest was everyone was wearing a mask. Like, facial recognition tech wasn't working as well.
I was saying that when I was looking at the videos. I was like, man, these people should be wearing masks.
Any of them.
They all look surprised that they were in there. That's what.
Yeah,
it's so funny.
I 100% agree.
You see people from like suburbia just strolling through the Capitol, like, oh my god, like selfies, and then you see like obviously the violent aspects of it. But you'd ask the question over there on which one of your lads are talking. You said like, could you see this happening in, why were the media so courting it? And, it's almost like they were happy it happened. I mean, it was a pretty sensational thing to happen just because of the persona that America has had for so long as being that strong country that seems to, be a law and order state. How easy it was for that to happen on, potentially the biggest day for the democracy and certifying a free and fair election. I think all those things put together makes it, quite sensational. Mm-hmm. But if you look at the history of America, we've seen incompetency take place when it comes to big events. They've brought up 9/11 in the documentary a bunch of times. You see the failings from 9/11, what happened in terms of allowing it to happen, where they had the opportunity to multiple times nip it in the bud, from intelligence to even the day itself, to even all these different things put together. So I don't think it's a surprise to me that America is incompetent and that it's not as tall as it claims to be. So that kind of is removed from the sensational day that it was, in that these people were able to get this far without anything happen to between there and the fucking Nancy Pelosi's desk. You know what I mean?
And the reason I brought that up is because I guess I was trying to softly insinuate that. Do you think that maybe the reason it was allowed to happen is because, and this is me playing devil's advocate. Do you think that maybe the fact that it was allowed to happen is part of some, not conspiracy theory, but some, grander conspiracy? And I'm asking you guys not from a place of...
though, because Tucker Carlson's documentary tries to make the supposition that it was like Biden's government that did this. But we all know that's... Come on, this guy's like a doddering dipshit. So who then?
Just you know what I mean? Like just the empire in general, no specific administration.
You can't make a claim like that in a documentary and not have any dots to connect. And that's where this documentary fails, in my opinion. It just
and I'd agree.
Like this overarching, like, oh, it's the deep state. But who, Tucker? Who the fuck are we talking about? Because Joe Biden's shitting himself on live TV like every other month. So
in the Vatican, nonetheless.
Game, though, I think he just has to insinuate these things for that thought then to be blown up.
Right, kind of run with it.
Honestly, that's propaganda now. Both left and right. You just have to give the idea and put it out there for then to be packaged and repeated. I don't know how many times I've the lads I work with, or the similar type where they're like, hey, did you see what's happening here? I see your boy Biden now is doing this, and it's just like some fucking outlandish thought that is not actually happening, but they obviously heard a soundbite from somewhere else. Like, it doesn't have to be an actual concise, backed up point for a lot of people to run with. So Tucker Carlson knows what he's doing every night, and certainly in this documentary, I'm sure he wasn't making sure that everything he said had facts behind it. Because we live in a post-truth era now, especially with how divided everything is.
Yeah. I would agree that probably the biggest downfall of this documentary, besides the obvious, like you guys just stated, is the fact that he doesn't have anyone to kind of point this to, right? He kind of vaguely points to it might be a deep state.
Yeah,
propriety.
He's going QAnon on us.
Yeah, where it's like if he was going to be a little bit more investigative, a little bit more, which in my mind would make this documentary, a little bit better, would be point us to some people. Who's been in power for longer than 20 years? That's probably have power that shouldn't have power. That doesn't get elected. That's just a bureaucrat that's there because they can be. That's unfortunate that this documentary doesn't take that turn.
I remember watching this with Cameron last night, sitting right where I'm sitting, and I remember stopping halfway through the second one, and I leaned over to him, and I'm like, do you feel like this is just like a fear-mongering, like, super Republican thing? Like, and he's like, yeah, I'm kind of getting that vibe.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, and you guys have already mentioned it. You and Ramon, have already mentioned it a couple times about how, like, they keep doing flashbacks to the gulags, and so it obviously has a very... strategic narrative about like how they're coming after you, like white Republicans or whatever. That's like very obvious.
Yeah, like Abu Ghraib torture video.
Yeah, if you're not getting that
headings,
if you're not getting that in the documentary.
What do you guys make of that? That dude, that super redneck guy with his feet kicked up on Pelosi's.
I want to have a beer with that guy. I love that guy
on his tractor, preferably.
I've come across guys like that quite a bit. I'm sure you guys have in Florida as well.
For sure. We got a few of them.
I would like to have a beer with him, but I can probably guarantee what he'd be talking about.
I was behind a truck earlier that had like 10 Punisher skulls on it.
So the way that they tried to sort of paint his character in the documentary is interesting, right? Because everything that they build up to in that episode 3 is all building to the point where they make the assertion, and mind you, I say this is an assertion, and this is part of what enables the documentary to get away with a lot of the string they get to invent by connecting dots, like the string that we don't know for sure exists. We're just supposed to trust Tucker Carlson and like his team, and however they like investigated and patchwork this all together. They make it very explicitly, like the big point they try to make at the end is like, oh, he's being prosecuted, and like his defense attorneys in the documentary. And he's like, oh, so he walks into Pelosi's office and like he has an inoperable stun gun on his hip that he uses for a cane.
Right, like they're supposed to know that.
There was a journalist who told him like, oh, you should pose, take a picture, like make yourself comfortable, and then he just did it, like as if he was like like he had no agency, like he was just in there and like
he was like a robot
by a journalist. And it's like, okay, so who's the journalist? First of all, you gotta.
They didn't even name him.
Carlson.
What's Tucker himself?
Tucker Carlson was in the Capitol.
Talking about. They try to build this sympathetic storyline around this guy, which again, I'm not like I said, when all this shit happened, I was chilling, eating popcorn. I wasn't like, oh, the country's over. No, none of that. I was like, all right, well, fuck it.
I think we were all doing the same.
I'm looking at it. I'm being Machiavellian about it. I'm being like, hey, you know what? Maybe this will scare the fuck out of these people in there enough to actually do something.
Right.
Do something good that people want, and not just fuck off all day. That was my super cynical take on it.
Well, they have the take where it's a honeypot, right? I heard some fella in the documentary call him 1/6 a honeypot for that the Democrats and the left would love.
Yeah, that's what they built it on. They try to say that, this was a Joe Biden honeypot. They just wanted they needed this as the final hammer stroke to, put the fucking white supremacist brand on all of us.
So I want to get, with that, this is a good segue. I want to get your guys' take on, when they talk about the Detroit field office FBI agent who, they word it as presumably oversaw the Whitmer plot where 12 of the 18 were undercover FBI agents. Because I think you guys would agree that, that does happen in the country in certain instances.
1,000%.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, so with that being said, this Detroit field officer who presumably oversaw this, plot to kidnap Whitmer, all of a sudden becoming the field office agent in D.C., do you think that, there's any kind of link with that, or do you think that is just another Tucker Carlson, presumptuous statement to try and, invoke some sort of, I guess, emotion of being unfairly, kind of tricked into this whole scenario?
I got to take on that. So, like you said before, like the Whitmer thing, I remember when that first broke, the story initially, and I was reading it this seems different. This is interesting.
Wow, the Boogaloo Boys really stepped it up a notch.
Yeah. I mean, we all know how well protected governors are, right? So I'm just all right, well, this seems like a little far-fetched, but all right. And then it slowly dripped, and then I think it was almost 6 months later, we found out that it was
it was quite a while later.
This is what gives Tucker his biggest kernel of truth in the whole docuseries, where he's like, oh, they built this whole fucking thing up the same way that we used to after 9/11, the NYPD would find mentally ill Muslim teenagers and gas them up all the way to the point of buying bomb ingredients and then be oh, we got them. You know what I mean? It's literally, it's fucking PSYOP 101 bullshit that they do specifically, but that's the thing, it's the main point of it isn't an operation on the person you're trying to entrap, it's a PSYOP on the rest of the country. Right. It's to push a narrative. So I 100% agree with you on your take on the Whitmer thing. But again, we have to keep returning to the base concept around why were people primed to fall for that shit. He, in this documentary, and a lot of people keep observing it as if it's in a vacuum. It's not. This was after years of Trump agitating these people towards violence. And again, this isn't me making some moral take on it. I'm just saying this is what happened. I don't give a fuck, honestly. Trump's not president anymore. I'm not living in that world. But he riled the fuck out of a lot of these people for years. Then the QAnon shit. These people were getting fucking clockwork oranged already. I'm sorry. Fucking with the eyes held Stanley Kubrick for over a year, bro. So the fact that he tries to be the FBI fucking planted themselves in with these guys. It's sure, I feel bad for them and that sucks, but it's these are people who not those guys specifically with the Whitmer thing. I don't know anything about them, but again, to focus around, bring it back to the 6th. those people know what the fuck they went there for. Like, I definitely don't have the same sympathy for them as I do as the Whitmer guys. I definitely don't have the same sympathy for these Jan 6 people as I do for, you know, countless numbers of fucking leftist agitator groups around the country that even think about getting militarized, even though there's like 20 FBI agents in their fucking group before they even form a Skype conference call. Yeah. You know what I mean? Like, it's just that's the biggest thing that I try to watch it with like a clear, you know, I'm just gonna go into this and have fun, but it's like, man, like you're saying, it's crazy that like any of these fucking like crazy old right wing dudes will watch this and be like, oh hell yeah, goddamn right, Tucker. Like, yeah, how can you see this and not be like, bro, this is what they've been doing to the left for centuries, or for like over a century, all around the world. They're literally finding this one kernel of opportunity of one thing where these people went and did one of the most extreme things you can do to a government, to try to go and take out, like, literally go after senators, house reps, whatever. And again, I'm not making a moral take on it, but it's like, it's crazy how they try to act like it's surprising that this was the reaction the government had. And it was honestly a super light reaction. Because remember when Trump fucking basically sent U.S. Marshals to execute the fucking Antifa guy? He literally went on TV and bragged about it. They rolled up and went to go arrest the Antifa guy who like got in a shooting at a riot or something.
Oh, yeah.
Something? Was that in Portland?
They found him. They fucking domed him in his car, bro. Like, and then Trump went on TV and was like, oh, yeah, I sent them. There has to be retribution. Like, okay. So, but that's Trump. Like, the cognitive dissonance it takes to see that shit happen. That example. And then look at Ashley Babbitt getting domed, getting shot in the throat, crawling through a window with politicians right behind that cop that shot her. I don't know. I'm just saying, like, for me, they're not the same, and it definitely doesn't evoke the same emotional response. You know,
I'm glad you brought that up. So I think that guy's name was Michael, started with an R. I can't remember his name, but it was in Portland, right? He just like randomly shot some guy on. It was Kyle Rittenhouse. He just randomly shot some guy on the street or something. That guy was definitely a piece of shit, but regardless, it was sort of startling whenever he sent, I think it was like Department of Homeland Security or no, it's the Marshals, you said. He just sent them into Oregon to kill this guy and, well, to arrest him. They ended up killing him. But,
no surprise.
And it was, I remember thinking that. I was like, well, you know, they're sending federal agents into the state to go after this guy and the state was clearly coming out and saying, no, we don't want federal agents in our state. And so I definitely had thought that was unconstitutional for sure, even though that guy, I had no, as you put it, I had no sympathy for him either.
Right. So, and the thing is, it doesn't matter whether he actually sent them and, like, told the captain, like, yes, execute him. It's how he played it. Yeah. It's how he said it in the media that it was retribution.
He's a tough guy.
So here's my point. If Biden did that right now, what the fuck would happen? And this is all I'm saying is, people have this, like, we have this crazy barrier of, like, whatever's left of civility in politics, where, like, we have to, like, be extremely charitable. The left does for some reason on things like that. If Joe Biden sent someone to go murk some guy in Texas who was at the 6th and was like, oh, there has to be retribution, fucking, you know, blah, blah, blah. Bro, there'd be riots right then and there. Like, it wouldn't. What happened when that guy got murked? Everybody was just like, "Oh, Trump's crazy still." All right, yeah, we're exhausted. This is like year 3. So that's all I'm saying is, like, the way that this documentary tries to, like, make the right out to be like the victim. Oh, they're just nice folks and they're being wronged, and it's like, no, let's keep it real. They're, you know, and I say this to people on the left all the time, like, you don't want politics to get to that level, because if it does, you lose. Those people have all the guns. They're the crazy aggressive people. We have, like, bros with man buns playing, like, banjos and shit. And like, that's not how you want politics to go. Trust me. But we keep playing in this arena of, like, acting like it's some, like, even tit for tat, and it's just not, man. Those people, a lot of those folks who were there, mad at them, you know, fucking had guns. They went there for a reason, man. That's all I'm saying. I'm sick of this narrative around people trying to be like, oh, they were just, sure, I'm sure 95% of them went there to be peaceful, sure. But you can't deny the fact that, like, no, that chick tried to crawl through that window and got domed. Like, it sucks to suck. I'm sorry. Like, what did you think was going to happen, man?
Yeah, what was her next move?
What did you think was going to happen?
So, just to preface this point before I make it, and just into a reaction to what you just say, Ramon, but we're clearly not Trumpers around this table. I don't think anybody voted for Trump around this table. So we're definitely on the same side.
In 2016, I did.
Yeah, for saying that he's definitely a schmuck in more ways than one. But do you think there's any? Can you give any credit to the fact that there was 2 failed impeachments, also like a whole wave of very critical media towards Trump, and like an election that sort of changed in the sense that how people are voting, now they're voting mailing and things like that. And I'm not saying that I'm going to go storm the Capitol or anything like that, but that there is on some level these people look at it and be like, wow, this is unfair. Look at the media. Look at the impeachments. There is something maybe there that makes me feel like this is kind of unfair. No? Can you say that, or is it more just like?
Are you saying like it's unfair as in there's a possibility there was a conspiracy against Trump electorally, or do you mean
I think he's more or less saying from the Republican, when I say Republican, I'm talking about the people that stormed the Capitol. And maybe I'm speaking for you, but I'm just trying to change his words to maybe be a little more relatable. I'm just trying to say, I think the point he's trying to make is that it's hard to ignore the fact that there was this, and I don't even think it's a theory at this point. There was a conspiracy between big tech, corporate press, some of the air quotes, deep state, the establishment, however you want to define that. There was a coordinated effort to try and trip Trump up and basically discredit him in every turn of the every turn of the race that they possibly could.
I would say the same reasons why Trump turned from a fat billionaire coming down an elevator when he was beginning his candidacy, all the way to the Republican debates where there was fucking 12 people on the stage, to him getting whittled down to the one guy, to him becoming president. That same courtship of the media that you say was negative press, that is the reason I think he got into office.
That's a really good point.
Number one.
100%.
Just to put that out there.
That's a good point.
So, and we've done podcasts on it where I'm talking to Ramon. We're discussing the fact that I don't think on January 6th he's just going to turn around, or on election night, sorry, he's just going to turn around and say, "Oh, I lost. Congratulations, Joe Biden."
Oh, I didn't think that either.
No. I don't think anybody in the country thought that.
And that's the thing is the elections have basically been contested for the past year, the past 4 or 5 elections. The other side claims that they lost unfairly.
Yeah, that's true. That's absolutely true.
And I mean, and even you could go to your own state, and we talked about it in one of the previous podcasts. The whole Bush and Gore election. I mean, and I said to Ramon, I put it to him the last episode too. In a different universe, if that was the election that just happened, and Joe Biden won on Florida on a recount, in today's discourse, could you imagine what would have happened?
With his brother being the governor,
With his brother being the governor of that state. They've contested Arizona now. They're trying to... I don't know how many times they fucking recounted Arizona. So I would... To your question and to your statement, I would say no. I don't think there was any sort of conspiracy by the media to cut the legs from Trump. If anything, he played the game to a point where democracy kind of took a hold and you lost, bro. That's the reality of it. When you talk about private companies like big tech and Twitter, they should have probably muted him. And I know you guys are libertarians, so you probably don't believe in any sort of muting, which is grand.
I don't agree with that either, though.
For the reason of why they cut him off Twitter, they could have done that months before. I think the timing made it look like, we just got to shut it down. But there was incitement from him. There was incitement from him the day of January 6th. there was continuous incitement from him, once he got into office. There's incitement from him at his own rallies, when he was a candidate, when he was a president. The reason he loved rallies, even when he was president, when he wasn't campaigning anymore, is because he had that crowd in his hand where he could say things and they would cheer, and he would say tough guy shit and he would cheer. So, yeah, I don't really I think that holds any weight in my opinion, but, I'm sure there's plenty of people out there that believe it, so...
Yeah.
I got a slightly... to answer... What's your name again? Did that ask a question? I'm sorry.
That was Cameron.
I'm Cameron.
Yeah.
Cameron. So I have the hot take you're looking for, sir. So I think
let's hear it.
That... I think, 2 points to answer your question, absolutely. I think the entire media establishment, including a lot of the right-wing media establishment, did not want Trump anymore. I think that he was peeling back too many, to use the fucking, cute conspiracy, cute terminology or whatever.
He's gonna say
I think he was keeping it too real. He was saying shit like, oh, well, the United States, Putin's bad.
Are you implying he was pulling back the layers?
Yes, he was pulling back the curtain, bro, on a bunch of shit. And I'm not saying, it's stuff like people like me, you, everyone on this call, we all know.
Yeah.
But to, the regular Joe at home, who
blows their mind.
Documentary is a shocking thing for, yeah, I think that they wanted him out. They thought that he was too unpredictable. No part of the establishment, whether the left or the right, wants any unpredictability in a president. People have been murdered over that in the past in this country. So I don't think that JFK, holy shit, no one knew what that guy was going to fucking do at a time when very critical decisions need to be made. So from the establishment media angle, yeah, I 100% agree with you. A lot of those people, those are the most civility brainwashed people in this country. They're all like, oh, he's uncouth. He's a fucking, a Philistine. He's an unwashed, fucking scumbag. Okay, they didn't like that shit. They got sick of reporting on it. He was done being interesting to them the first year of his presidency. So I agree with you on that. Now, as far as the electoral conspiracy, I disagree with the fact that people try to propose that, the left had some cooked up thing. The left hasn't tried to steal an election or really fuck with anything since JFK, in my opinion. When there was actually mob people on the left. Mm-hmm. That's not even a fucking thing anymore. From everything I've seen. But I will tell you, if someone did try to do some electoral shit like that, it would have came from the right. It would have been someone like the Koch brothers. It would have been some fucking person who, the Mercers still were backing him, I think, in 2020, but it would have been someone with power and pull that would have been Machiavellian enough to make that kind of a move. And no one on the left has that fucking ability. Look at these people.
Not as individuals.
They're everyone on the left is. But yeah, not an individual. But I'm saying, who's the group? Who are even the people?
The deep state, Ramon. Come on, bro.
Hillary Clinton's still out in the woods. Bill Clinton's fucking got dementia.
What about George Soros, bro?
I don't know, man. All I'm saying is the people who've actually successfully pulled off shit like this in the past have been right wingers in this country.
Well, so I think right now there's a lot of people with influence that are maybe we would consider them left. You probably wouldn't. They're probably more aptly described as centrists. People like Zuckerberg and
neolibs.
Neoliberals.
Exactly. Right.
No, I agree with that. That's what I'm saying. I throw the social media stuff in with the establishment media because that's what they are now. The social media companies are legacy media now, in my opinion. They've been around long enough. But I'm saying, and from the electoral standpoint of
that's why they're putting out fake whistleblowers to try and gain more power
or fuck with stuff like that. You would need hatchet men on the ground to do it. And only the right wing has those people now.
Right.
The left wing doesn't even have hatchet men anymore. Who do we got? Rahm Emanuel?
Right.
Who?
And just to add to your point, when you were saying about mail-in votes became more prominent this election for obvious reasons, because of COVID. But Trump actually shot himself in the dick because he was telling people to go out and vote, not vote by mail.
I was hoping you were going to say dick and not foot.
Yeah. He can't see his feet. His belly's too big. But yeah, I mean, he actually hurt himself. He hurt himself numerous times in that 6 month period prior to the election.
I agree.
And that's I'm not saying that that's what happened. I'm just saying from the the insurrectionist Republican, standpoint. They're looking at it like, you know what I'm saying? Whether or not it's a conspiracy or not. I was just saying, has the media and some of the things that happened given them some
leverage
to say, I don't know, get it hyped up, I don't know. We always want to give,
sure.
So I think there's something there.
That's definitely fuel for it. It's definitely
bro,
fuel
you're
for
talking to Bernie voters. They did the same thing to Bernie.
Yeah.
Bernie got
the
fucked.
establishment Democratic
Exactly.
He got dick, man.
Yeah,
God.
we know that. Yeah.
That's something we brought up a lot whenever this whole thing was going down. We're
Hey,
like,
you guys lived it.
like if you voted for Bernie, you gotta admit this can happen, right?
100%.
Okay, well, all right. So to move on to another topic they brought in is the purging of the military. So this is something that's kind of ongoing, and one is something that's definitely just like really scaring the shit out of right wingers, because the military and I guess, I mean, at this point, it's not really that big of a deal because the military is, easily over 50% from the southeast region of the U.S. Like, I don't think, people are scared that they can unleash the full power of the military on, specifically Republicans or anything like that, although I'm sure some people believe that. But, there is definitely a clear, kind of like rooting out of leadership in the military that don't see things a certain way. Definitely if you were a Trump supporter, you're, demonized and not taken seriously. And we see all the, the woke crap that's going on where, we got, right now we have, the, Congress voting on adding women to the, selective service, which is kind of, a totally different topic, but, it's just another example of just this woke military unleashed that's just like doing totally nonsensical shit.
It's a ceremonial, meaningless thing, yeah.
Yeah, well, yeah, the selective service
is where you have to sign up for the meeting,
for the draft.
Yeah, I had to do that, but I'm not even a citizen. It's all done.
Yeah, yeah. So, that's just one example, but we have like, we have a lot of different examples. I can't honestly think of one off the top of my head, but we see that the military is. We've known this for years. My dad's military, so I hear about all the sort of. I guess you can call them trainings, but they're more like PowerPoint presentations that they have to go through that are, over half of the guys in that room are rolling their eyes. But if you outwardly express that you're opposed to this stuff, you're booted. You're done. So it is a little bit concerning. I could definitely see their concerns there, because this is a armed force that they're kind of propagandizing and bringing into their ideological sphere, and making sure that they're not going to turn on them. They're going to turn on the other side. It seems like they're kind of taking the military and trying to influence it one way or the other, so that if shit does pop off, they have, their guarantees that the force is going to be on their side.
Yeah, that's just not, I don't think that would happen. Just because it's too fragmented. Something like the military is just so fragmented. There's just so many different viewpoints. It took the military how long to just get over the whole don't ask, don't tell? You have like
right. I agree. The thing is, a lot of the lower enlisted are more right wing leaning, but most of the leadership is not.
Leadership.
Most of the officer corps.
Yeah, they're all West Point fancy boys.
Yeah, exactly.
Well, that's the same across society. I feel like you have. Even when it breaks down in voting, and correct me if you think I'm wrong on this, Ramon, but when it comes to like white educated voters, they tend to vote Democratic, or that's one of the demographics that they break down, is that the non-college educated voters tend to vote for someone like Trump.
Well, this is why I love this topic, because this is this is my wheelhouse, baby. This is the exact. This is another sort of pressure point of what's happening to like the American just culture, economy, everything overall, where you have you're feeling class pressure. Because just like what you said, like all the officers and the high-ranking people who are just nodding their head and going along with whatever the status quo is now in the military, what they're being told on these PowerPoint, these decks that they're getting loaded up. The rank and file don't like that shit. This is class politics, in my opinion, because most of the people who are actually fucking putting their boots on, picking their gun up every day, you're probably like 4 or 5 times more likely to be a Trump voter, right? So I think that's an interesting dynamic. But at the end of the day, I think it's just what we're seeing is, what you would call wokeness. I think it's just the HRification of the military. It's like one of the last bodies.
That's a good way to put it. One of the last
places that it's like the last vestige in America to experience this. But I saw this as an inevitability coming down the road like 5 years ago.
What you said about HRification.
When you look at it from the perspective of what just happened January 6th, I'll say it again. Any other country, this would happen. Because at the end of the day, what you had was your capital was attacked, right? Now, Obama, when he came in, Obama, when he came in, he tried to talk a little bit about white supremacy, but he was too afraid to. A lot of left-wing people were pretty upset at him about that because, they were like, hey, like, we need to, like, start approaching this issue for what it is. The FBI statistics, the heads of the FBI had been saying, like, hey, white supremacy is like an actual issue as far as domestic terrorism goes. And I think that's another dangerous part about this documentary is the fact that it tries to talk about white supremacy as if it's a thing, like it's just like a cultural token, like it's just like as if it doesn't exist in the same classification as what we would put like gangs in.
So Ramon,
there are white supremacist organizations in this country, and there are dangerous ones. Like let's not just be too flippant about that.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like that does exist. But as far as the military goes, no, this is a totally. I try to look at this stuff from the nation state's perspective. If you have an event like the 6th happen, if you had a guy like Trump in who, like I said, talking about, taking some of that shine off of the prestige of all these, centers of power in the establishment that have existed for so long and have been vaunted in so many Americans' minds for so many decades. He's removing that shine. Of course they're going to go in and try to do some ideological cleaning. Of course they are. Because look what happens to countries where they lose control or there's civil wars or the government's overthrown. That's how it happens. The fucking military. So of course the military from the upper echelons of the military are going to start setting policy to tamp down on that shit. They don't want to be fucking getting a fucking knife stuck up their asshole in some insurrection in the military.
I like that.
Of course they're going to do that.
The Gaddafi reference. I like that.
No, but I mean that's really all.
No, you're right.
This is just a nation state protecting itself.
All right, so
I don't know why people act surprised though. Why though?
Well, it is odd that they go so far towards one direction.
They're going to tamp down on anyone who's trying to upset their status quo how they set it. It's that simple, man.
But who's setting the status quo?
Whoever Well, here's your answer. Capitalism setting the status quo. Capitalism is what set this HRification into motion of the world because because that's what business dictates is the correct way to conduct yourself.
Are we confusing capitalism with corporatism though?
All this wokeness.
Now we're getting into me and Ramon at Pete's wedding.
Yeah. Are we confusing capitalism with corporatism?
Corporatism is just a mechanism of capitalism.
I disagree.
Yeah.
Well, if it depends how you define capitalism, I suppose.
Yeah,
sure.
I guess the way we see it.
I should just say moneyed interests then.
Yeah.
The moneyed interests in this world are the ones calling for this HRification of all of our organizations and government agencies. It's not left woke leftists.
And I would take it a step further in that American capitalism has used the military as a tool in order to continue to capitalize on what it needs to do to be that capitalist.
No, you're certainly not wrong about that. I think this is definitely where me and Ramon were kind of hung up when we were talking for a long time at the wedding, was that the way we see it is that we're all capitalists, but we do not agree with any of the large corporations in this country that are taking subsidies from the government. A bunch of them literally don't exist. a bunch of them literally only exist today because the government is there to protect them. Protectionism is not something that we would support. We want people to buy the things that they want, buy things from companies that make things that make their lives easier, and not not get forced into, like, for just to draw a quick example with Elon Musk, with the electric vehicles, a lot of the technology just wasn't there at the time, and they kind of just shoved it down our throats. They're like, you're driving electric vehicles. This is what's happening. And so a Tesla automobile wouldn't cost $60,000 if it wasn't for the fact that the U.S. government came in and said, here, we'll give you $5 billion to jumpstart this program. If it wasn't for that, they would cost probably over $100,000.
Right, and I think what Chris is saying is the point that I was trying to make, where this kind of corporatism, where there's a lot of government interest and government intervention, gets conflated with, I think, maybe it's, I think it is the traditional definition of, free market capitalism, and I think that's where a lot of the murky water kind of comes into play. And I don't know, what's your guys' take on that?
Yeah, I think that's for another podcast.
For sure.
Free market analysis.
Good move.
What I will say is that special interests were certainly at play on something like January 6th. Don't get it twisted. And I think special interests were at play in propping up somebody like Trump for obvious reasons. The reasons he would cut programs that were seen to be limiting to some of the bigger industries that were obviously in his ear. I mean, that's politics. I mean, you've seen the hang-ups in the Senate, and you've seen hang-ups in government now. You have people like Joe Manchin who, you can see the money that's gone into his pocket from lobbyist groups, so that you're seeing the jammerheads and the loggerheads that are happening because of those interests. So I think it's ingrained and it's baked in right now. And to remove that, whether it be in the military, whether it be in, the actual government itself, is something that people have tried. And someone like Bernie Sanders, who's shed a light on it, has been even stiff-armed by his own party because of that.
Right. Another. Right. Non-party guy, kind of unpredictable kind of guy.
Yeah. And Bernie Sanders in his height and as he grew, he essentially was a populist, much like Trump was as he grew. Populism was taking over everywhere, and you saw Brexit happening. You see what's happening around the world. It was, I believe, a pushback on what people have seen, which is, politics, you know what I mean? And feeling like people have been manipulated into, living the lives they're living.
Yeah, I personally would agree with what you're saying. In fact, that's how people feel. Before we move on to maybe like the last part of this documentary, what do you guys, this is just maybe getting a little too off topic, but we'll see, is the reason that Trump was able to bully and pretty much bulldoze his way through the Republican Party and Bernie was not able to? Obviously, like, the DNC had a huge part in that, but I don't know. It's just interesting to see from your guys' point of view what Bernie could do maybe next time, or someone like Bernie could do moving forward.
It's a simple answer.
Go ahead, Ramon.
Bernie wasn't willing to go for the throat.
Okay.
He could have easily destroyed Hillary Clinton, and he chose not to, and he did the same thing again against Joe Biden. He constantly said Joe Biden's a friend. He wasn't as charitable to Hillary Clinton, but he was still boxed in by trying to run inside of the Democratic Party, which was in the midst of, what you guys, everybody calls wokeness, where he didn't want to be perceived as attacking a woman. And I think that was his downfall, where Trump had no problems. I mean, bro, he literally called Ted Cruz's wife ugly. He told Ted Cruz's dad killed JFK.
Yeah, he made a comedy hour.
He got greasy, and a big part of it is because who knows if Bernie would have been successful if he was aggressive, because obviously the people that are voting for Trump are much more attuned to aggressive politics. The Republican. Whenever Republicans have bloody primaries, they win in the general.
And what's funny about the point you brought up is that
doesn't hold true for Democrats.
What's funny about the point you brought up is Ted Cruz ended up falling in line, and now he's like a big Trumper.
Yeah.
He's a big Trump diehard.
Yeah, he sticks that Trump D.
Well, Trump was talking about his wife. Now he's like, yeah, we need to, get Trump back in.
I think one of my personal view on what happened with Bernie, I think the pivotal factor was when they threatened his wife, and they threatened to bring her to court for some what was it again? It was it wasn't fraud. It was some minor,
probably Russian, a financial body for a college, and it was a drummed up story of nothing happened.
That was now
the investigation happened.
Now, who was that? The DNC that did that, or who was that?
It was brought up by the DNC.
And they did the same thing with Tulsi. And maybe you guys would disagree. I thought Tulsi was probably the best candidate overall. Until recently, she started talking about some pretty pro-war shit, but I hopped off the Tulsi train then.
Yeah, she had 2 topics that she was very strong on, and then everything else was kind of.
Yeah, I feel like you could argue the same thing with Bernie, though. No,
bro, she was talking about Modi like he was like he was Jeremy Corbyn or something. She was literally sucking Modi off at every turn.
She was
that was a huge red flag.
She was super anti-war, and then all of a sudden she was like, the biggest threat to America is Islam. And I was like, wait, what? The fuck just happened?
That was just a month and a half ago.
As soon as I saw she was every chance she had deep-throating for fucking what's it called? Indian nationalists. I was like, oh, okay, she's a right winger. She's in disguise.
Masquerading.
Yeah. That was it for me. And she was doing that way back in 2015. So I don't know why everybody was surprised, but maybe everybody hadn't seen it. But I knew right off top.
Your question on why Trump was able to kind of steamroll the Republican Party and Bernie wasn't. I'd agree with what Ramon said with regards to Bernie. I think I'm under the illusion, and maybe it's a fantasy, but if he had ran as a third party in that election, I don't even know if that would have been possible. But I feel like he would have probably won. There was that many people rooting for him.
Yeah, he's
that many people who didn't want to vote for Hillary Clinton. You know what I mean?
And I think
he's that many people who are centrist.
He's not at heart a revolutionary leader. I don't think he has what it takes to be, that guy. Like you're saying how Trump...
Well, how old is he?
If Trump had the ideological views that Bernie has, he'd be a way better Bernie. Right. Is what I'm getting at.
Right. Yeah, and I think Trump was able to steamroll the Republican Party and stick with me on this, but I think he has been around for so long. A lot of people have watched him on TV. They saw him as a successful guy. He was something that was completely new. So people wanted him around. They wanted to see what was going to happen next in the car crash. You know what I mean? It was like...
Oh, I completely
and everyone
agree.
who was in the Republican Party was like... They wanted to be like, stop doing what you're doing. But there was that much support to him that, they were going to get primaried if they went against it. You know what I mean? It literally swept up the whole establishment. And it was kind of fun to watch from a leftist perspective. But those are my takes on why he was able to do that, and why he continues to be kind of a kingmaker in it. You know what I mean? It's the blessings that he gives certain candidates now, even while he's sitting at his perch in Mar-a-Lago or the fuck he is. He continues to be that fella, I think.
Yeah. All right. No, go ahead, Bookie, if you had something.
No, just to finish this off, I would agree. I think part of this, where this comes from, is Trump is a narcissist at heart, and he's someone who he has, compared to 99.9% of the people, has everything, but to him he has nothing. Where I think Bernie, with his 3 homes and everything else he has, he's kind of, I think he generally feels like he's okay in a sense. I think I honestly think Bernie does feel like he believes in the things he says, but Trump wants more, right? So that kind of heart and passion, I would call it, even though it's, bullying at the heart.
Narcissism,
yeah. Yeah, narcissism. kind of pushes him more forward than Bernie maybe being a little more complacent. Unfortunately, I guess, if you're...
Well, and that's kind of the point that Ramon was making about saying he wasn't willing to go for the throat.
Exactly.
And I was kind of interested that it kind of backfired on him. You would think that, granted he had the DNC kind of attacking him in that sense, but you would almost think that would be more of an argument in his favor, that he was willing to not play dirty ball with the rest of them, that would drum up a little bit more support. But I guess at the end of the day, it didn't matter, right?
Okay.
Inside his own party, when Clyburn gave the blessing and gave the blessing to Biden, that was the end of the candidacy, right?
Yeah, for sure.
You know what I mean?
Okay, so
that's just party politics.
To get to the last episode, the last episode kind of focused on. There was a lot of flashbacks to Guantanamo Bay for sure, and then there was. So they talked about Ashley Babbitt quite a bit, which we've kind of gotten to a little bit, but I think the thing that was really like attention grabbing and definitely was going to rile a lot of people up is where they talked about the people who were incarcerated from the riots 6, from the January 6th, whatever you want to call it, and the different things that are supposedly happening to these people in confinement, and they really did kind of hammer that it was exactly like Guantanamo Bay. And so, I mean, they kind of, they just had that one guy, the guy from Nancy Pelosi's desk, he kind of described what it was like when he was in there. So, I mean, we have one source. What did you guys think about that? Because I was kind of just, taken aback by what he was describing. I guess really the question is just how honest it is. I don't know.
I don't believe him.
Yeah,
okay. I don't believe him.
Where are the rest of the people? Why did Tucker only get the one guy? If he was referencing another guy that got like his eye stabbed out, where's that? Where are all these people?
Didn't Tucker just for precedent on this? Didn't Tucker supposedly have like a laptop for a while? Remember that he was breaking news that he had a laptop,
or Hunter Biden's laptop,
news on it, and it ended up being like a load of bullshit. That was only a couple months ago too, so I don't think it's out of Tucker's wheelhouse to just have one person and say that it's gospel. So I don't buy it. They're trying to like make the leap from what that fellow was doing after being arrested to Guantanamo Bay.
Right.
And I'm not saying I don't believe shit like that doesn't happen. I'm sure it does. I would be way more likely to believe that guy's story if it wasn't woven in it, if it wasn't one of the last few threads of this patchwork of propaganda. Yeah, I don't know. I definitely think, I mean, like I said, shit like that for sure happens. I obviously don't like any of that. I don't, people being essentially held political prisoner anywhere in the world is a big no-no for me. But again, I struggle with this idea of, like they were, zooming in on like his ankle bracelet and stuff, while it was like up on, his mower. And it makes me think, and it's like, well, I mean, hey, as much as like I don't like cops that much either, just like you guys don't, and I don't want the state to be like, I don't want a carceral state. I don't think those are good values to have a country centered around. But again, there has to be some consequence to breaking into the Capitol. And if it's being on house arrest, then, that's pretty light. Especially, it's kind of crazy, right? How they're like juxtaposing all the Guantanamo shit, and then the guy's like, "Oh yeah, they banged my head into the concrete floor and blah blah blah." But here I am riding on my mower on my $1 million property.
I was kind of thinking that the whole time.
On house arrest. It's like, well, wait, why are you? What happened?
Yeah,
they just you and then
they didn't explain that part.
I know.
They Guantanamo'd you and then let you go home.
They skipped a part. Like there was definitely a part in there they missed.
Yeah. Like you didn't go to trial. They just like pulled up to Idaho and dropped them off. Like
I don't know, man.
That's a good point.
Think of it.
No, that's a good point.
So one of the things that happened kind of like following the January 6th was that Nancy Pelosi was pushing for the Capitol Police to have, basically, I mean, she was trying to turn them into like a national police force. They were talking about putting an office in Tampa because Florida is full of domestic terrorists, which is true. But
there's literally 4 of them on our podcast, so I can totally understand that.
You're all on the no-fly list outside of Florida.
So far, I'm good. I just went to Maryland last week, so. But yeah, no, I thought that was definitely that was really concerning to me when I saw that she was pushing for that, and the one thing that's really significant about that is that the Capitol Police is one of the only agencies in the country that is exempt from the FISA warrant program.
Right.
So
and this is a point we bring up a lot on, and I'm sure if Ramon said you said you listened to a couple of our episodes. This is a point we bring up a lot where these agencies that were never meant to be politicized are now becoming politicized. For example, in Florida, Nikki Fried, she's the department head of the Department of Agriculture. Now she's going after all these, the people that were at the January 6th riot. And she's taken away, how many was it the last time we looked? Like 12?
20-something.
Yeah, 20-something. Okay, so it was like double what so 20-something concealed weapons permits because, for whatever reason, in Florida, they deal with our concealed carry permits.
Yeah, the Department of Agriculture.
Yeah, the Department of Agriculture. So, I think this is, exactly.
Weird.
Yeah, this is just, I'm just kind of supporting Chris's point how, these agencies that were never supposed to be politicized are now being not only politicized but also weaponized.
I had a theory on a past podcast that they, the Department of Agriculture was probably predominantly Republican for its, back in the day, and so they thought, there'll never be a problem with that. But I looked back on it, and actually they've predominantly been Democrats. So, but yeah, so I'm not sure why that happened. Maybe they just needed something for the Department of Agriculture to do.
Yeah, I mean, they do a lot of stuff, but I didn't know that they had any purview over permits and licenses. But I think part of that is because most of the permits and licenses are all based around environmental stuff, right?
Yeah, maybe they already have the infrastructure to do it.
They probably were just like, these people do this already.
Yep.
Let's just have them do guns.
Right. Like, they might as well just give it to the DMV,
Right. And then, part of it too, I think part of that probably has to do with like Cold War shit because, I can't remember what podcast I was listening to, but there was, someone made a point where like, how like, a ton of communist countries had like all these, like the ministry of blah, 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 whatever. Like they had like literally like dozens of them all throughout their government, and like how America like purposefully never bifurcated where they should have throughout history. They just kept lumping more responsibilities under the same departments. Just weird, interesting take I heard. I don't know if there's like any validity to it, but
yeah. No, I mean, I guess I'm just curious what you guys think about that because, from our point of view, there's really, I mean, there has to be a lot of reasoning or evidence behind it to be able to take someone's Second Amendment right away from them. And she's just kind of, it's seemingly willy-nilly, just anybody who was at the Capitol riots and was confirmed to be there is, gets their concealed carry license revoked.
And this is a right that, you guys, being on the, a little more lefty side, maybe not agree, but we don't even think that.
I don't know. Karl Marx was a big Second Amendment guy.
Yeah, maybe, who knows? But, we argue that this shouldn't even be a right that you need to apply for and get a permit for. So the fact that, we even need to have a permit for is kind of ridiculous. And then on top of that, they're using, and we're backpedaling a little bit, but like, they're hunting down these, January 6th guys. And, this is something we all caught on pretty early. Like, these people who ended up in the Capitol, like, yeah, you're probably going to get fucked for this.
That was the first thing I said. I was like, these people are going to regret this for the rest of their lives.
The rest of their lives. To watch them get hunted down and like, go ahead, Peter.
Yeah, I was just not to cut you off.
No, go ahead.
We probably don't fall along the same, Second Amendment plane. For sure. I certainly think people have the right to bear arms if they can go ahead and comply with a basic set of rules. As someone who comes from a country where we have no mass shootings and and we don't have to deal with that as a problem, I certainly wouldn't fall in the same plane as you guys. I'll say that first. But America has its laws around the Second Amendment, and I do respect the idea that people should be able to own a gun for protection if need be. I don't always agree with the type of guns that they need to own or would like to own. I certainly would like to, have a lot of things that I can't have just because they're fucking dangerous. We talked about rules and things that the government tries to put in place to protect people, and again, that would be something that might, I guess, we would probably disagree on. But for people who've attacked, we can call a spade a spade. These people stormed the Capitol, whether they just buffoonly just fucking fell upon the Capitol gates or however they got in there. Once they were in there, they saw what was happening. If these people now are crying that their concealed carry license are being taken away, well, so be it. If I was to, me as a non-citizen, if I was to go and, fuck around and, storm the City Hall here, I'd be deported.
Okay, so Paeder, I'm gonna
set of rules that.
Sorry, I don't want to cut you off, but I'm gonna press your logic for a second.
Right.
So you say that the people that as you put it, stormed the Capitol, yeah?
Yeah.
Okay, so the people that stormed the Capitol, you think it's whether loosely or harshly, you agree that the fact that the state is coming down on their their right to bear arms, you think that's semi-fair, right?
Right, I do.
Okay, all right. So with that being said, and this is partially me playing devil's advocate, but so how do you draw any comparison to? And I know we talked about this earlier in the episode that most of the the Black Lives Matter protests were peaceful. What do you make of the FBI and the media's seemingly complete? They're just ignoring the entire situation. Do you think that any of the people that caused some of the violence during the Black Lives Matter protests and, some of the violence that occurred with that, do you think that the FBI's complete ignorance of that, do you think that there's any parallel to be drawn between the two? That maybe some of these people who attacked, some of these buildings, I mean, you look over the course of the last year, they caused over $3 billion in property damage. I mean, I know earlier in the episode you said it's remarkable that people made it into the Capitol. Is there a fair comparison to be drawn between, getting into the Capitol where, apart from a couple windows, how much damage was really done versus $3 billion in property damage across the country? Would you be in favor of the same kind of people losing their Second Amendment rights?
Right. I mean, around the fact that there was a concerted effort to go to the capital of the United States on the day that an election was certified, I think the gravity of that, and then mass protests in the street with which, a lot of the goals may have been like, petrol bombing a business, that was the worst that I saw. Lighting the police station on fire, I guess, was some of the things that I saw as well.
That was the only good thing to come out of the Black Lives Matter
or provocateurs, whatever you wanted to talk about. But I certainly think that people who have been found to have done these things should have their Second Amendment rights at least looked at and taken away. You talk specifically about concealed carried. If there was a concealed carried person swept up, if Ashley Babbitt had her concealed carry on it, do you don't think she would have been knocking on the door of that thing with the fuck and tapping on the glass?
I think if she was going there specifically to cause civil unrest and do damage, I don't think having a concealed carry would have made a difference. I think she would have brought a weapon regardless. And
But she didn't.
Right, she was an armed serviceman, so automatically, you know, I don't know if you guys are very familiar with the concealed carry laws, but as an armed service person, all you have to
Texas,
do... Yeah. What's that?
I said I used to live in Texas. They used to carry him on their hip.
Okay, yeah. So it's a little different, so, you know, depending on where you live, but as an armed service member, you don't actually have to take a concealed weapons class, you just apply for the license, so... You know, with that fact in mind, Ashley Babbitt, she was a candidate for concealed carry, and I can almost guarantee that she was a concealed carry permit holder. You know, I this is me, you know, being a little hyperbolic. I don't know for sure, but being an armed service woman, being a Republican, all she had to do is pay, what is it, a $35, $45 fine or fee to get her concealed weapons carry. She didn't have to take the class being an armed service member, so... You know, if she really was going to the Capitol with insidious intent, you know, I think having a concealed weapons permit is besides the point.
Right, but I think it turned into a concerted effort to storm the Capitol after the actual fucking rally, right? So I don't think she was going there, you know, to bust down Nancy Pelosi's door with a gun. And I think overall people told people not to bring weapons, right? It was one of those things they didn't want that to happen. I'm sure there was people with weapons.
I could be wrong, but I think there was one weapon confiscated at the whole
from
event.
The protesters.
Yeah.
Yeah, there was nobody really arrested on the day of the thing either. So you know,
that's good.
Confiscating weapons wasn't going to be happening either.
Right. My
point is, though, I think. If you can get easily coerced into storming the most sacred building in the democracy of the United States, then you probably shouldn't have a fucking concealed.
I want to take my conceal out and shoot myself just hearing
that. It's like me. If your capability to be able to make critical, good decisions when you have something that can take someone's life really easily and you have it concealed on your person, then that should be looked at. So all those people who made the dumbest decision of their lives should have their fucking ability to be able to, you know, carry a concealed weapon, or at least some parameters in to stop them from, you know, having that on their person, then yeah, so be it. Same with people who did dumb shit during the BLM protests.
Okay,
if you're going to Molotov cocktail shit, then you probably should have some sort of liberties taken away.
And this was a point we brought up a lot here on this.
Here. Oh, sorry.
It's a quick point, but this is a point we brought up pretty often on our podcast in the earlier days. You know, when we first started, was these people that did that, like, you know, you knew, like you guys said, you knew what was going to happen, right? You don't, you know, the government, like we talked about earlier, is very proud of their power. Like, you're not going to walk in, like, regardless if there's resistance or not, you're not going to walk into the Capitol, kick your feet up on Nancy Pelosi's desk, and nothing's going to happen to you. So, you know, this isn't something that we were necessarily in favor of, but I think it's just interesting to see that, you know, they're now coming for, you know, something that we consider, you know, a God-given right, and now they're, you know, they've politicized and weaponized it. But, yeah, what were you going to say, Ramon?
Well, no, what I was going to say is, like, I take issue with, like, the opening question you put toward us, right, before Paeder responded the first time, was you kept basing a lot of the comparison between the BLM protests and the insurrection around property damage, and I'm just, from my perspective, I'll throw that right out the window. I don't give a fuck about property damage.
I don't think we don't really either. But
we'll say this.
It depends.
I'll say this quickly. I think we will
finish my point, though. Let me finish. Yeah, from the political perch of the conversation we're having. Like, I don't think that has any relevancy. I don't really give a shit about.
I disagree
that because at the end of the day, like, well, like, is that how much of that property damage, like, even went to civil court? And, you know, like, so people bring up all of these big, huge numbers around that, and then, like, compare. I'm not saying you, but, like, other other pundits and stuff, and people. Oh, they're like, well, look, this is what happened at the Capitol, and it's like, yeah, I don't. And there were people on the left like, oh, they destroyed sacred things. Who gives a shit? Don't care. They're things. They're not people. You know, I would happily trade in $10 billion in property damage for one life. I don't give a shit. It doesn't matter. You know, it's not people. But what my take on the whole concealed carry permit thing is, I I think that the big disconnect that's happening is the fact that you're saying, like, oh, the Department of Agriculture was handling this stuff with Florida residents. It's not that surprising to me because I feel like everyone forgets, like, there's no state jurisdiction in D.C., right? There's no governor. So, of course, the federal government, and, you know, that's perceptively their zone of power, regardless of whether it's, like, you know, there's, like, a mayor in D.C. or whatever. The D.C. mayor ain't shit. You know, we all know this. That's the federal government's home. So, you know, it's not surprising to me that they're going to, like, react in some crazy way like this, like we're all agreeing. But to, you know, answer your earlier question, like, no, I definitely used to be way more on the, you know, the more typical establishment Democrat perspective of, hey, yeah, we should probably just have less guns and we'll have less deaths. But after watching, like, how crazy politics got in the last, like, few years, like, I was like, no, fuck that. Everybody should be able to have a gun. Shit's out of control. So, you know, I'm being somewhat intellectually honest with it. I feel like I am on that perspective where it's like, no, I'm looking at it more from an individualist perspective than a public health one on that point. So, you know, I tip my hat to you gentlemen for being there the whole time. But
yeah, we're definitely there on the individualist perspective, as you would say.
Yeah, for sure.
But no, but like again, like it all just keeps coming back to, for me, like, you know, if that's the worst thing that happens, like, oh, I can't have my concealed carry, like, I don't know, I don't know what to say.
No
I mean,
sympathy.
I feel bad for the people who were getting fucked with that were only outside. I agree with that.
Yeah.
But anyone who went in that building, anyone who touched a cop, anyone who broke through a barricade,
they're stupid.
You fucking played a stupid ass game and won a wild stupid prize.
And I
got fucked with.
And I completely agree. My only rebuttal or interjection to that is, what do you make of the people? And you I mean, I don't know. You know, you've been to a concert. You know how crowds can get. What do you make of the people that? And this is me playing devil's advocate. What do you make of the people who were just kind of there and just kind of got caught up and ended up, you know, in the Capitol? Do you have, you know, is there no nuance in that conversation for you guys, or do you think that anybody that ended up in the Capitol wanted to be in the Capitol, or do you think there's any sort of leeway in regards to the people that ended up in there, maybe just kind of got swept up in the crowd?
I think the likelihood. I think the likelihood that a lot of those people who got swept in or went there on purpose into the building were the same fucking people who were at home screaming at their TV during BLM shit. That were like, oh, fuck them, blah, 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 they all need to get arrested, whatever.
But isn't that kind of regardless of the fact?
They went because they thought it was something related to an election, and they thought that it was different. So again, like, for me, it's like, well, they're missing. It's their problem if they can't see the parallel there.
And they were all flying a Blue Lives Matter flag. They were all talking probably about the Constitution as they trample all over it by trying.
I don't know. I feel like you can draw a lot of parallels with the BLM crowds. I don't know. And maybe this is just me. Go ahead.
I'm saying the parallel of them realizing that they weren't not the cognitive dissonance they have of thinking that they're always on this right side of law and order and authority in this country, and then them breaking the law immediately by walking up those steps and not realizing it.
Yeah,
that's what I'm saying. That's what I mean. It's just crazy to me because I've never seen. I've been to a bunch of protests, so like the overwhelming majority of them with permits, right? You have big protests, you get the permits, just like some of these people did at the 6th, right? I agree with that.
How wild is that you need a permit to protest, though? We talked about this in our last episode.
But the minute that you step into a place that is no unauthorized access, and you're doing that, it's like, well, you have
a decision to make.
Yeah, like you made that choice. Like I don't know. You made that choice, and then not to mention you made that choice in a place where the government had no choice but to fucking slam the book at your ass.
Yeah,
because that's what this is. Like you said earlier, Chris. Like all of their power rests on perception. We watched how out of control the country was during the George Floyd protests. People lit police stations on fire. The country was out of control. There was like, what was the unemployment rate? Like almost 10% at one point. These people were this fucking close to losing control of this country. So they had Anyone who thought that the fucking boomerang wasn't going to come screaming back to slap them in the face the moment they walked up those steps was just a delusional person.
Yeah, but with that being said,
to a member of Congress, though, imagine if they had got to a member of Congress. With that being said, charges that would have been brought against anybody who had stepped foot in there at that point. If they had gotten to Pence, if they had gotten to Pelosi, you don't think that you think they would have just had a conversation with him?
Well, no. So with that being said, I don't see the same concerted effort to go after the people that cause some of the most violence with the BLM protests. I don't see the same concerted effort going after them as I do the people that, and I guess it's subjective, how you compare destruction, but I don't see the same concerted effort. It's going towards the people of the BLM riots as the January 1st private
thing on 6/1. Like I said before, the BLM protests, 93% of them were peaceful. When you talk about the millions of people that had done that, so the
right, but you're also comparing
because it was.
Go ahead. Go ahead. Sorry. Finish.
I just want to point out, Paeder showed his European side and went 6-1.
Name one person at a BLM rally, though. That's the thing. You don't know those people. We know who the QAnon shaman is. We know who the guy who put his feet on Nancy Pelosi's desk are. Yeah. The fact that I know it and you know it means the government has to do them. That's the point. We don't know who those BLM people are. That shit happened in anonymity.
That's a fair point.
That's why. That's right. That's the difference right there. That's the answer.
But okay, so my rebuttal to that, and I completely agree with you. And this is maybe more of a question.
Goes back to the mask thing we were talking about earlier.
Right. But the point I'm making is the coverage different compared, one or the other? So we know everybody, all the big players in the January 6th riot. And, Paeder, I know you said 93% of the riots, I'm sorry, let me reword that. 93% of the protests, right, were, peaceful protests, so that means, only 7% were violent. Is it fair to compare something that went on for, January, this was 6 months of rioting at this point, compared to a one-day event?
I mean, I think your verbiage is wrong there.
Okay.
When you're looking at numbers, when you have millions upon millions of people protesting over the course of 6-8 months, and only 7% of those involved, when you talk about numbers, you talk about masses.
Well, 7% of millions is a lot more.
And the drive and what they're actually looking to achieve from this, which is social justice, racial equality, against police violence. This took one protest on January 6th for them to storm the Capitol of the United States. One day over the course of 4 hours, if even that. So when you're looking at numbers and you want to compare data, then their free throw percentage is better. Talking about the 6-1 guys than the 7%.
Yeah, they went straight for the jugular, right?
Rioters from millions of people.
Yeah. One thing I was going to say is I think because you said you think that property damage is kind of like not. I don't want to put words in your mouth, but you're not really concerned about the property damage compared to lives, I believe is what you said.
That's what Ramon say, right?
Right.
Yeah.
So, I think from our perspective, I'd rather see every government building in this country burned down than one guy's gas station. Because, that one guy is ruined. That's his livelihood, and he's totally ruined after that.
Those two things aren't a choice, though. Yeah. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah. I feel like they were, though.
If there's people burning a gas station,
but while we're comparing
the front 10 the line of protesters, 10 of them right in the row, everyone leaves, and it was over because they freaked out and went crazy and murdered people.
So then,
but you can't make that same comparison of, can I burn every government building or just this guy's gas station? That's not a real life example.
All right. So
when you're talking about lives or property, you can stop property from being destroyed. You just have to kill people.
Okay,
and it stops.
All right. So with that being said, this is just me again playing a devil's advocate because
Ramon came back again.
Yeah, Ramon, you said you was in a couple of episodes. You know me, I'm the devil's advocate. So, with that being said, do you support or detest what Kyle Rittenhouse did? And I know we're well beyond the whole January 6th document. Now we're just spitballing. We're just talking shit now.
I'm going to sign off here in about 90 seconds. Let me give you my take on Kyle Rittenhouse.
Okay.
Because if you're going to come across state lines,
like Gage did. Like Gage did.
What?
Like Gage did.
Yeah.
Okay. Go ahead.
No, Kyle Rittenhouse came across.
Right. So
lines,
so did Gage, the felon with a pistol. Right.
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
Go ahead.
Yeah, but you asked about Kyle Rittenhouse.
Yeah.
So he came across state lines with, was it an AR?
Yeah, but I mean, state lines is 20 minutes. That's like from here to Sebastian. Like I'm at Vero.
I mean, he knows the rules. Don't you need to know the rules to purchase a gun? He knew he was committing a felony, right?
Well, he didn't cross state lines with the firearm. The firearm wasn't his. It was in Kenosha. But go ahead.
He got somebody else's gun. Okay.
Which is the law, which is fine by the law. But go ahead.
He was 17. Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
So and then he thought he was with the gun.
Yep.
Went down to protests that were clearly violent. And
they were pushing dumpsters that were on fire into gas stations. So yeah, pretty violent, I would say.
Yeah, they were clearly violent, like I said. So he thought that going down there he would help the situation.
I mean, he was putting out fires and like rendering first aid to people, but
was he?
Yeah. There's videos from him earlier in the day doing that.
Water.
What?
And then he was like, he got scared and then shot 3 people.
No, you got it wrong, bro. You got it wrong. You got it wrong.
There's FBI drone footage.
Yeah, what do you mean? He went to go put a fire out, and Rosenbaum, who earlier in the day told him, if I catch any of you motherfuckers alone, I'm going to kill you. Rosenbaum chased him, as he does as a pedophile chasing children. Chased him down, and he tried to grab for his gun, and our boy Kilo Romeo went to work. That's kind of how it is. This is me being a dickhead, by the way. Just so you know, I'm just being like,
The Rittenhouse thing, in my opinion, is like in the discourse is being talked about all from the wrong perspective. Like everyone's talking about it from a legality standpoint, which like I've heard tons of people have the take, even on the left, like. Yeah, he's probably gonna get off. He got a legal kill. He will get off. He's a Zimmerman. He's good. But
I don't think that's a fair. I don't think that's a fair comparison.
What we need to talk about around Rittenhouse is: are you okay with vigilantism? Period. Like that's what that was.
Yes, for sure.
You know what I mean? Like
100%.
Are you or not? That's the only question.
Yes.
And my answer to that is fuck no.
If you're there to defend private property, and as long as you're not instigating, which is
that's the biggest argument right now, right?
You're carrying around a gun like that.
Carrying a gun isn't instigating, though.
I feel like if you try somebody with a gun, that's
maybe in Ireland.
In that setting, you're instigating.
I disagree. When you have a situation where the police aren't doing anything, what are you supposed to do? You're just supposed to sit back and watch your cities burn to the ground? I don't think it's instigating at all.
What?
It wasn't his city.
What are you talking? It was 20 minutes from his house. What do you mean? It wasn't his city?
It wasn't his city.
No, I see, and I disagree because
camera months before beating up a girl in school. Did you see that video?
Yeah, it turned out not to be him or some shit. It turned out not to be him.
Did it?
Yeah, it did.
Oh, I didn't see that.
Yeah. But no, the point I'm trying to make is I live. Okay, so right now we're in Vero Beach, Florida. I live in Sebastian, Florida. I'm 20 minutes from Vero. Granted, I'm not crossing state lines. It's still 20 minutes, regardless if I'm crossing state lines or not. Granted, we didn't really have. We had a peaceful protest, right? You guys would agree. We had a peaceful Black Lives Matter protest, which I was in favor of. I think the George Floyd killing. I think most of us here would agree that didn't need to end the way that it did.
All of us.
Yeah, all of us, right? Nobody here is in contention of that. So, if my, I have friends who own businesses in Vero. If they called me and said, hey, like, again, this is all hyperbolic because the protest never got out of hand here, but if I had friends in Vero that said, hey, we're kind of worried about, our business being burned down, we know you, and you guys may not know me personally, Chris, but like, we both train to be proficient in self-defense. Like, if they were like, hey, we are worried about our business, could you come and, just kind of, just keep an eye out. Me driving 20 minutes, regardless if it's state lines or not, like, should I, like, do I really have no business being there if I was just trying to protect my community?
I mean, what do we have insurance for? That's my question.
That's not an argument to me. That's not an argument to me.
That's a broken window fallacy.
That's not an argument to me.
That's not a broken window fallacy.
Yes, it is. That is like the definition of a broken window fallacy.
Point of insurance.
No,
that's the whole point.
Disagree. Wasted resources.
Disagree.
As much as the right wing tried to bring up a ton of propaganda around the time of the Black Lives Matter protests about insurance companies weren't paying out. Yes, they were. That was a complete fucking lie.
Okay, even if they were, that doesn't mean that it's okay.
Payouts, the only people who weren't getting insurance payouts were people who didn't have insurance.
Okay, so what? And some people don't have insurance.
So when people get sick, if they don't have insurance, that's their fault, right?
The decision is to give a 17-year-old an uncle's AR-15 to, give out water and apply first aid to buildings.
I don't see an issue with that. If he's trained proficiently in medical aid,
which he clearly was based on the video.
He shot a fellow who threw a plastic bag at him.
He shot a fellow who grabbed his AR-15.
Yeah, he didn't. He threw the bag.
Go up to a cop and grab his pistol and see what he does to you.
Well, I mean, he was able to walk towards the cops then and not even get arrested.
Walk towards the cop? He got tackled 3 times at that point.
No. He talked to the cops before the shooting.
Yeah,
that was before.
And then he
like 2 hours before.
He was able to go home and sleep in his bed.
No, he wasn't.
I'm not saying it was like right before. I'm just saying what Paeder's referencing happened before the shooting. That's all I was saying.
Oh, okay, all right, fair enough.
Yeah.
No, but after the shooting, then he walked towards the cops
with his hands up,
with his hands in the air, and was able to walk home.
No, he wasn't. He did not walk home. He went
$1 million bail
driving. I'm not sure.
He went home after he paid the 10% of $1 million bail. Yes, you're correct.
Yeah. Whatever.
Well, he didn't pay it. They had to get a GoFundMe.
No, he got home and then turned himself in or got arrested. Didn't he?
No, he turned himself in after he shot Gage, or after he shot all 3 of them, I guess.
No, I don't think.
No, he left the scene and came back.
No. No, what do you mean? The cops were a block down the road. The cops were a block down the road. The SWAT team was a block down the road. He ran to them with his hands in the air.
Yeah, and walked right past them.
And they ushered him.
Negative. Wrong. That is not what happened.
It is 100% what happened.
That is not what happened.
I watched it happen, but
and also he did.
We watched different videos, I guess. I don't know.
Girl in school as well.
What's that?
Just to give a character reference for him. And then the last thing.
No. What did you say? Go back. What did you say? Character reference. What did you say?
He did punch that. He did punch that girl, by the way.
I didn't see any confirmation that was him. It could have been him. I really don't know. What I seen.
Yeah, I mean, it could have been.
Yeah, it could have been. It could have not been. But
I think that's besides the point.
Yeah,
because you got to analyze the situation that actually happened. I mean, his character's you can kind of draw conclusions on what maybe he was thinking based on his past actions and his character and things like that. But that's kind of besides the point. And I know Ramon was saying, people are bringing up legal arguments, but when you're analyzing the situation, what actually happened, I think what his past is kind of besides the point.
And I think it's worth noting, all of us here recognize that legality doesn't equal morality, and that's something that we always talk about on the show. So just because it's legal, that isn't a scapegoat for us to equate morality to. But go ahead. Yeah, go ahead, Patrick.
Absolutely. And what I was going to say, my last thing I'll say is that we're talking about legality here and whether he was right, and you guys are condoning the vigilante aspect of what he was doing.
Not necessarily.
I want to talk.
Yeah, I mean, you are, essentially, because what he did was...
No, I think you're confusing us promoting vigilante with us promoting a kid that wanted to... you guys will probably disagree with this, but we view it as a kid who we view it as a kid who wants to protect his community, and he ended up having. I know you're laughing, but this is genuinely how we view it. We view a kid who went in, who was cleaning up graffiti beforehand. He was rendering it first, medical aid to people. He was putting out fires, and the people who were protesting / rioting didn't like that, and they went after him, and he used self-defense, as a means to defend himself.
That's the thing, Patrick. I think the way you're seeing it is that he went out there with the intention to, maybe use his gun. I don't think he had the intention to use his gun. I think there's any evidence that he had an intention to use his gun because he waited until he actually ran away for quite some time.
He got knocked down like 2 or 3 times before that.
Finally caught up to him, and that's the only time that he ended up using the gun.
I gotta jump off. I have a sick kid.
All right,
no, you're good.
So
you're good,
let's just wrap it up.
We'll gang rape Patter here.
I'm about to jump off too, but I want to say this to wrap up my point.
Yeah,
you guys are in essence condoning the vigilantism of what he was doing.
I disagree
because of what he did, right? So you're at the same time. There's another trial going on right now with Ahmaud Arbery, right? Those guys who thought they were doing the right thing,
which we were against, by the way.
Picking up. But like I said, the road to hell is paved with good intentions. Maybe Kyle Rittenhouse did have the intention of putting out fires, handing out water, administering first aid. But when you get swept up in something as hot as rioting or January 6th, then you put yourself in positions where you're going to have to make these decisions that he's not trained to be able to make in a split second.
I disagree. I think he looked like he was pretty trained to be there. He
trained to be there?
I'm not saying he was professionally trained to be there, but he demonstrated a pretty clear target discrimination. He didn't shoot anybody that wasn't attacking him.
No, one of the guys was attacking him.
All 3 of them were attacking him. What do you mean? All 3 of the guys he shot were attacking him.
No, one of the guys was attacking him.
All 3 of them.
A danger to his life.
Right, the guy that hit him in the head with the skateboard, the guy that grabbed his gun, the guy who put a gun in his head.
To shoot somebody.
What's that?
Or shot somebody.
What's that?
Yeah, I would say he shot the other 2 people after he had already shot one person, so the other 2 people were then trying to disarm him.
I disagree. Completely disagree.
But hey, if I could just interject, Patter, I really appreciate you doing this with us.
Yeah, this is fun, man. This is fun to see the 2 different sides of the argument.
Yeah, we got into a little bit of a off the cuff argument there at the end, but nonetheless, I think it's in good good, as you say, in good intentions.
Yeah, for sure.
So yeah, I think we all like we found out today. We all agree on a lot of things. Important things, which I think especially foreign policy, we're on the same page, which is great. I think we definitely did. I think the root of our disagreement on some of the domestic stuff has to do with I think which is what we kind of got into quickly, where we quickly got away from it because it was off topic, is our different views on economics. And so I think we just have vastly different views on that. We think that private property is as
essential.
As the guy in the Senate House said, it is sacred. So I think that's kind of. But yeah, no. Again, we appreciate you and Ramon coming on and
this was fun, man. This was a lot of fun.
It's great to just have this back and forth on kind of just differing opinions. I think a lot of us kind of started as Republicans. And you guys, I know Ramon started as a Democrat. I'm not sure about your roots, as you're not. I don't think you grew up in the U.S.
I'm a freedom fighter.
There you go. Hey, regardless, we appreciate that.
Yeah. No, this was a lot of fun, lads. We'll do it again. Enjoyed it, and I think it's conversations like this that need to happen more often.
For sure.
And people are able to have them, and then be able to say, "I'll talk to you later." So I definitely want to do something like this again.
Well, for sure.
I appreciate the time. And, have a nice time sitting on. You guys on the porch still? Or you,
man. We're hammered. We're a bottle and a half in, bud.
Nice.
Do us a favor and tell Ramon that we love him.
Irish one here.
Yeah, there you go.
Yeah, I would like to drink with Paeder.
Yeah.
Oh, yes.
We're all American.
Yeah, you gotta come down and hang out with us, man.
Happen, lads.
Yeah.
I will. Like I said, when I retire, I'll probably head down there.
No, you gotta do it before that, man. Do it before that. We got places for you.
Just kidding.
We got places for you, man.
I've been to Cocoa Beach before.
Oh, that's not far. That's not far at all. Close to
us.
Yeah. It's a little dirty, but it's alright.
Yeah, it is.
Well, hey, man.
Good night.
Yeah, thanks again, Paeder.
Yeah, we appreciate it, man. This has been a lot of fun. We'll definitely do this again. I think it's cool to have, people with, more or less the same ideas kind of come together with a little bit of nuance and have these kind of fun civil discourses. I think this is the most important thing, not this stupid duopoly bullshit that's going on in, the media these days.
Right, there has to be space for nuance, because nothing is as cut and dry as it's made seem in sound bites and headlines.
Right. Yep.
All right, lads. Take it easy.
All right, man. Have a good night.
Good night, man.
Peace.
Bye. Politics on the Rocks wants to thank you for joining us and Foreign and Domestic Unfiltered on this episode number 25 for an awesome conversation. Continue listening to us. We'll have a lot of more fun conversations with them in the future. So I hope you guys enjoyed your time here with us. Enjoy our outro.